G'day there guys, it's your Aussie Hubby Markee, back at it again with another r/entitled parents video. Now if you love me like I love you, then you know what to do. Want you to mosey on over to that old like button and tackle it like bloody Crocodile Dundee. Maybe even chuck an Aussie flag, some prawns and a Barbie down in the comments below. Now with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chug a shrimp on the Barbie, and get ready for some bloody entitled parents Karens. Gah! Now our first post is by user Lind Loser, titled, Entitled mother abandons her child at a camp she didn't sign up for and tells me to send another kid home so he can stay. Long time lurker, first time poster, etc, etc. This happened before quarantine. Now, to preface this story, I teach gymnastics in a very affluent part of a very big city in Southern California. You know the one. Most of the kids I work with are either Russian or Israeli and speak Russian or Hebrew, and I've encountered a lot of entitled parents in my time at this gym. Most of them irritating and not worth posting about. But there's one Russian mum who is absolutely off her rocker. My boss has some experience with her and doesn't put up with her BS. So the cast are me, myself and I, insane mum, and Kay, her poor son. Every school holiday, we have day camps where up to 30 kids come to the gym and we play games, practice gymnastics, generally screw around. Our camps are really popular and usually fill up at least a week in advance. Additionally, we allow parents to use their kids' missed classes/makeups as credit towards a day of camp for a reduced rate. This particular day of camp, I was working at the front desk and we were slammed. I'd already turned multiple walk-ins away because we were over capacity for USAG regulations, which is in violation of our insurance policy. Around 2 hours after camp started, at around 11 AM, Kay walks in the front door by himself. This is weird for two reasons. One, because parents are supposed to come inside and sign their kids in and out. Two, because entitled mother sent us an email the night before that and explicitly instructed us not to enroll Kay in camp and not to change her card. So I asked Kay to run outside and ask his mum to please come in so I can sort things out. He opens the door, yells back and forth with her in Russian, "Suka blyat nahuy," just for a bit, and then closes the door, as entitled mother drives away. Kay tells me that entitled mother is going to call me. Great. This is how the most insane phone conversation of my life went. Entitled mother from an anonymous number, might I add, says, "What? Hi, I just wanted to speak with you because I'm a bit confused. Last night you sent us an email instructing us not to enroll Kay in camp. Yes, because last time you enrolled him you charged my card $65. That's 1 day of camp. And you stole my money. Ma'am, that is how much 1 full day of camp costs. I'm going to have to ask you to come pick up your son because we're at capacity for the day." "No, there's no way your camp is full. I unenrolled him last night when I sent you the email." "Yes, and we had walk-ins this morning that took his spot." "No, I sent that email at 10 last night. There's no way your camp is full between now and then." "Actually, we had the last spots taken by a few walk-ins this morning, so we are full. You can't just drop your son off here without paying after instructing us not to enroll him. There's no way your camp is full. I sent that email at 10 last night." 5 full minutes of me trying to explain to her how spots are limited, and when she gave Kay's spot up, it became available for the first person to walk in. Eventually, she seems to get it. "Okay, that makes sense." Extended pause. "Well, you'll just have to call one of those other parents and tell them you made a mistake and they need to come get their child, because Kay is special and has been taking classes there for a while and he deserves it." "Excuse me? That's not how this works. Kay lost his spot when you told us to unenroll him. Kay deserves to be there. He's more important than the other kids and has been there longer, so you can call their parents and tell them you made a mistake." "No, you need to come get your child." "But I made plans. I'm sorry, but we don't have room for him because you specifically told us not to enroll him. Because last time you stole from me. You took $65 from me. I work hard for my $65. That's how much 1 day of camp costs. No, I want to use makeups and you charged my card $65 and stole from me. Ma'am, we don't know you want to use makeups unless you come in and tell us. Most people just use them for another class." "Oh, that makes sense." Silence. "Yes, I'm going to need you to come pick the kid up." "But I have work." I thought she made plans. Look, I understand that, but we don't have room for the kid. It's against USAG regulations for us to take him. So you can either come and get him, or I can have my boss call you. No, I don't want to talk to your boss. Then you need to come get the kid. I can't, I have work. Fine, I'll have my boss call you. I don't want to talk to your boss. Either you come get kid, or I can have my boss call you. I don't want to talk to your boss. Okay, this conversation is unproductive. I'll have my boss call you. I hung up and called my boss, as promised. Her kids still come to class, but she's banned from bringing them to camp unless she walks in and pays at the beginning of the day. She still constantly brings them in an hour before our half day starts and asks me if I'll be charging her for a half day instead of full. And I always politely tell her that no, I'll be charging her for the full day. Now she just speaks to her kids in Russian and has them talk to me for her. Rightio hooligans, our next post is by Spamarfi, titled, Entitled Father Suing His 18-year-old Daughter Over Unemployment Money. Not mine, but a close friend's. Her parents are divorced and father got full custody. Only issue is, he is an unbelievable jerk. He basically forced her out once she turned 18 to living with her mother. However, she's employed by her father at his pizza shop because he made them work for him. With the quarantining, he had to fire his own daughter since they couldn't afford to keep her on. I should also mention that the only way he afforded to open the pizza shop was using his mother's child support money. Now most of the kids are 18, and he's getting significantly less of it. She filed for unemployment since she was fired, and her father is now taking her to court over it, saying that part of that money should be his. She hasn't even lived with her father since at least August. Can you imagine? Oh yeah, hey dad, you just fired me and oh god, you know what? I'm gonna give you my $1,200. What's that? Oh, you want more than $1,200? God, dad, you're just too kind of a person today. No worries, buddy, here you go. Alright, and our next post is by Mr. Adorable, titled, Entitled Mother and Her Entitled Kid Try to Steal My Sister's Switch Lite. So, here's a little bit of context before the story begins. Animal Crossing recently came out on the Switch, and I bought it on release, and since then, my sister has wanted but didn't have a Switch, and neither of us could buy one, as it all sold out pretty much everywhere. Well, anyways, on to the story. Also, first post in this sub, so don't judge. EM is entitled Mum, EK is entitled Kid, me is Guess Who, MM is my mum. So because of this corona, we haven't gone to the supermarket as often as we normally would, so whenever we do go, one person needs to go to help out with all the groceries that we buy. So I decided to go with my mum so I could finally leave the house. Now, as my mum did the grocery shopping for one of the stores, I went around looking through a few stores to see if they had a Switch Lite in stock. I finally went to EB Games. It's basically GameStop, but in Australia for anyone who didn't know. I talked to the lady at the counter, and she said she had only one Switch in yellow, which was the one my sister wanted. So I text my mum, and she comes over to pay for it. As we were leaving, I hear, "Mommy, I want that one." Oh god, here we go. Entitled Mother approaches us and is like, "Hi, I see that you have a Switch Lite there?" "Yeah, I bought it for cuts me off. "Well, we just asked the lady at the counter and she said that that was the last yellow one, and my son really wants it. He's been such a good boy, don't you think he deserves it?" "Yeah, so you should give it to me." Keep in mind he has the dumbest look on his face. Yeah, just "No, sorry, we just paid for it and it's for my sister. She wants it, so probably as much as your kid, and to be honest, I don't care if he's been a good boy or not." "How dare you speak to me and my angel like that? You know what? For being rude, you will give it to me now." And she goes to grab it. Now, at this point, I kinda just lost it, and surprisingly, my mum didn't get mad at me afterwards for it. And I still got my tendies and good boy points. "Karen, I don't give a crap what your fudging demon of a child wants. If he wants his own damn Switch, tell him to wait until one goes in stocks, and if you can't get one, use the many to get lessons on how to have some fudging manners, whatever that means." At this point, she looks more infuriated than ever. However, me and my mum start walking away. She's screaming at us, "Get back here and give my child what he deserves, you ignorant little crap." I pay no attention to it and just keep walking. We do the rest of the shopping and Karen seems to, coincidentally, end up in every store we're in. We leave and head home, and my sister loves the Switch Lite and Animal Crossing too. The end. Or it would be if we didn't have 20 minutes left. Now our next one is by Thrick titled, Entitled Mum Treats Me Like an ATM. Backstory. Allowed a friend of a friend who was down on her luck to a room with me. Edit, for 2 years. So we did become close friends, as she needed to get away from her abusive ex/father of her son. In hindsight, the fact her boyfriend at the time would not spring for a place for her to move in with him should have been a red flag for me. There's a whole other story regarding both the father and the boyfriends, plural, that I won't get into right now. Jesus, this is a roller coaster already. I don't know if I can deal with it. I thought abusive ex/father, she was dating her dad and now they're broken up. Just kidding. Fast forward a couple years. Stuff happened. Lost my job, had to move back home, literally across the country, and got rehired. Still kept in contact with her, and since I could afford it, $100 every couple of months to help her out wasn't hurting my finances while she was down on her luck. She was back living with her mum on government assistance for a while, so it was infrequent enough that it didn't bother me. But after a while, I was getting real tired of her begging me to borrow some cash. Realized I never did tally the total amount, and was shocked to find that it was over $12,000 over 8 years. So I basically gave her an ultimatum early last year. Essentially, I'm cutting you off at the end of this year, 2019. You have a year to get your act together. If you do, great. You don't need to rely on me anymore. If you still need help, then I'm just throwing money away into a black hole. I thought I was helping you get back on your feet, not letting you live off me. Whatever the case, come January 1st, I'm not responding to any requests for money, period. Things were pretty cool the first half of the year, but then the latter half is when things went south. First, it was more frequent requests for money, like helping for the initial deposit for an apartment, as her job didn't pay her yet, or groceries. Okay, critical life stuff I can accept, like she'll need a cell phone plan to handle email and such for job hunting, but then it was requesting like $500 in the span of 2 weeks in small chunks of $40 here, $80 there. Then one time, instead of asking first, she'd just send a money request from her bank as if I was an ATM and would just blindly send it along. And if I didn't respond right away, she would spam my phone, even though she knows I'd be busy working, in meetings, or commuting. A portion of it is on the subway, so I'd be offline for around 30 minutes. But obviously she can't wait that long. Cue the phrase we'd seen in this sub for a lot of entitled parents. Failure to plan on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. Then the parent parts. There were incidents like asking to pay for her child's medication because his dad forgot to pack it for his visitation. Why should I be paying for this? Not my kid. Shouldn't you be asking his dad? No, I'm not giving you $80 for a bus ticket for your son to visit you. I know you miss him, but I don't see it as a critical expense. I'm sorry, but maybe you should try deferring the visit till later when you're more financially stable. I'm sure your 12-year-old son will understand. Then the kicker. This past Christmas, she had saved enough to buy a Nintendo Switch. Not, saved up the money to handle surprise expenses or pay me back. Not that I expect it, but went immediately towards a very expensive gift for her son. The reason she was contacting me, however, was that her ex-boyfriend, not the one from before, I've lost count of which boyfriend, probably number 8 at this point, had serious entitlement, anger, and mental issues, broke into her apartment, and stole a bunch of stuff like the Switch, and pawned it. Thankfully, the police were able to get to him, and I believe he's in jail now. However, she's still out at present. But instead of getting a cheaper present or asking around other friends and family to pitch in, she contacts me first and asks for $200 to go towards the present. Obviously, I declined. I think she eventually settled on a gaming keyboard and a mouse for him. Naturally, she uses the ruined Christmas line on me, which got me really ticked off. Her ex ruined it, not me. I don't really owe her anything. She's not entitled to my money, I'm not an ATM at her beck and call. And it's not like I'd ask for nudes or anything as compensation. Really, given what I know of her family, I'm staying very far away from all of them from now on. Again, what is with the connotation here? Is the family asking her for nudes? That's what? So far in 2020, she still tried to borrow money, but I've held true to not giving her anything. Also, never having roommates ever again, especially people with kids. And our next post is by user Addicted to Coffee 09, aren't we all? I used to think some of these entitled parent stories were fake until I encountered the most entitled mother ever today. I'm a parent, and when I read some of these entitled parent stories, I think there is no possible way that someone is entitled, or at least that entitled. Then today it happened. I encountered an entitled mum, and now I've been humbled because I realized I was wrong. There are some crazy entitled people out there. The cast are me and the entitled mum. So, today I had to go to the grocery store as our family is low on food. It's warm here, so I wore a tank top and jeans. I'm also a type 1 diabetic and wear an insulin pump with a continuous glucose monitor. You can see the monitor on my arm. I'm at the store when my pump starts beeping, alerting me that my insulin is getting low in my pump. So I pull out the pump and silence the alarm. I hear a kid behind me say, "Mummy, that looks like a cool toy, can I get it?" I ignore it until I hear entitled mother say, "Excuse me, I need your video game," as she is tapping me on my shoulder. I say, "Ma'am, I do not have a video game with me." "Of course you do, I see it in your pocket there. You're too old for video games, give it to my kid." "Ma'am, you are mistaken. That is a medical device and I cannot..." I couldn't finish this because she reached over and grabbed my pump. I smack her, but she had a death grip on my pump and ended up ended up pulling it out of my body. Ow! I start screaming, telling her that there is a needle at the end of the tubing and that she needs to be careful that her kid doesn't get hurt. Employees come running into the aisle and start asking what happened. "This crazy person just pulled this thing out and tried to stab my kid with the needle on it. I want them arrested." "Actually, that's my insulin pump, but you just pulled it out of me because you thought it was a video game," as I'm bleeding from where she pulled it out onto my shirt. Shortening a long story. Entitled mother insists I came after her because I'm crazy and hate children. Police are called because she wants to press charges. Police review tapes, see that I'm telling the truth, and arrest entitled mother. I leave without my groceries because my pump is freaking out that my sugar is rapidly rising as I don't have it inserted in my body, giving me a steady stream of insulin. Just typing this post has me shaking my head, because it seems made up, and if it didn't happen to me, I would question it. Ow, pulling it out of your body just makes me cringe. Ow, I can't imagine. That's like one of my worst nightmares, having something like a needle pulled out of you. No thanks. And our next one is by someone that's a recurring user, Sub to Dead Meat. Crazy religious aunt takes revenge for the stories I posted. Last time we met my conservative Muslim auntie, she demanded me to delete her stories and I refused, which led to me bleeding from her scratches and her son confronting her for the last time, or so we thought. Disclaimer, entitled auntie does not represent all Muslims in the world. Our cast are entitled auntie, yours truly, and cool cousin. Rest in peace, nice uncle. Let's begin. My cousin and I were chilling in quarantine after entitled auntie assaulted me, and suddenly we hear the door ring. I went to open it, really hoping that it wasn't entitled auntie. But sadly my suspicions were confirmed. She's like, "Why the frick didn't you delete my stories?" "Because you assaulted me after I warned you that doing any threatening action will result in me keeping them." "But why did you have to add 2 more? "Because in addition to harming me, you have harmed cool cousin emotionally again. You deserved what was coming your way. You stupid crap, I'm gonna sue you and there's nothing you can do about it." Actually, entitled auntie, you simply cannot sue me because you simply have no legal grounds to stand on. I want to speak to cool cousin right now. Wish.com version of the "I want to speak to your manager" statement. After she said that, she tried to push me again just to talk to her son, but I stood my ground and pushed her back. The look on her face was priceless. "But how you push me?" "Please just leave. You will pay for this." I later go into the house to continue playing games with my cousin. Cousin's like, "Who was that?" "Oh, your mum came back. She wanted me to delete the stories, but I didn't let her in." "Good. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it." "Yeah, man, don't mention it." Later that day, I heard some scratching on the door. And when I opened the door, I saw entitled auntie with a knife. And she's like, "Oh shit, get out before I report you to the cops." After entitled auntie ran away, and when I saw what she was carving, she literally carved the words kafirs in Arabic on the door. Anyways, no cops were called and now we're simply chilling at cool cousin's house. On a side note, thank you guys for advising me to stand up to entitled auntie. I really appreciate it. Rightio gamers, our next post is by Crystal LBX, titled, Entitled Mother Karen Tried to Get Me Fired for Being Gay. Nicknames of those involved: Karen, Leslie, the friend of mine, super fabulous friend, also the manager, and of course me, just an innocent bisexual woman in my 20s. It was a normal day working at Claire's, a retail store focused on female-targeted items, with me on the register. And I see walking in what appears to be a religious Christian woman, probably homophobic. Her shirt said, "God loves me and my child, not the rainbows." After grabbing a plushie from the plushie display, she quickly went straight to the counter. Karen then said to me, "You need to be fired on the spot." For context, I was wearing a Pride Wins shirt and a rainbow necklace. In my confusion, forgetting I had a Pride stuff on, I asked her what I did wrong. Karen then said quite angrily, "Your shirt and necklace is toxic. You cannot wear something like that in a retail store aimed at young children. You will infect them with the gay and the trans." I tried to calm this obviously enraged Karen, saying, "You are wrong, that's not possible. But regardless, I am only here to help customers with their shopping experience." The Karen then proceeds to yell pretty much at the top of her lungs, "I demand to speak to your manager for your spreading gays." My friend Leslie comes in and asks the Karen, "What seems to be the issue, ma'am?" The Karen then asks Leslie if she's the manager, to which Leslie said yes, then proceeded with the following: "Your employee is wearing an offensive and infectious shirt and necklace that needs to be removed now. For context, we are allowed to wear Pride stuff. Thanks, Leslie." Leslie responded, and it's clear she must have heard the Karen as she was walking in due to how loud the Karen was, with a, "Sorry to hear that, how can I help you?" The Karen then responded with, "Fire her." Leslie then said, "Okay, sure. Would you like to buy the merchandise you're holding first?" Note, Leslie was clearly being sarcastic, something the Karen did not pick up on. The Karen then said, "Yes, but I don't want her touching the money or the plushie. It's for my daughter, and I don't want her to get infected by the gays, so you do it." Leslie says, "Okay, valued customer, I'll do it if you really want me to." After the transaction, she calmed down and said, "Thank you." But as she was leaving, Leslie said to the Karen, "By the way, hi, I'm Leslie and I'm bisexual." The Karen screamed, threw her change back at Leslie along with the plushie and plastic bag, and then ran out of the store. Whenever we teach new workers how to handle problematic customers, we bring this story up. Now our next post is by Laggy YT, titled, Entitled Mother Wants Me to Give Her Precious Angel My PC. I have a gaming PC, but not the best. It runs games that I play with averages FPS of 1 to 200. I was having a birthday party with some friends that went to my school, and they also had gaming PCs. Except for one kid, the entitled kid. He has an office computer that isn't meant to run games. We're having a good time and I ask my friends if they want to play some games on my PC. They all agree. Keep in mind entitled mother is at the party with the other parents. So we're taking turns at Rocket League and playing games like that. And entitled kid says, "I wish I had a gaming PC like yours, OP, so I could play my games." I responded with, "Well, yeah. You kinda are running on an office computer. You should save up for a gaming PC." He then asks in an annoyed voice, "Can I borrow yours? I don't want to save up the money for my own." I kindly respond with, "Sorry, no you can't. This is my personal PC that I paid for and I don't trust anyone with it." Keep in mind my other friends are also here. My mom walks into my room and tells us kids' lunch is ready. So we went out and start eating our barbecue, and entitled kid is whispering to his entitled mother. I can't hear anything, but it didn't bother me. Entitled kid then stands up and says he'll be right back, and says he's going to the toilet. His entitled mother sneaks off to their car and brings it in front of the house. Entitled kid has been gone for a while, and I go to check if he's okay. I find him in my room unplugging my cords from my computer. He notices me and bolts to the front door with my PC. I quickly run outside and tell my mom what's happening, and she runs to entitled mother's car and asks her where she's going. She said she was leaving. In the back of the car was entitled kid with my PC in the seat next to him. I notice the PC and go to the door and try to open it, and it's locked. My mum manages to get the door open and goes at the kid for taking my PC. Entitled mother says, "Don't yell at my entitled kid. He deserves the PC more than your son does." My mum responds with, "If you don't give my son his PC, you'll have to deal with the cops." She hesitates, then gives the PC back and speeds off. To this day, I haven't seen entitled kid or entitled mother since. Thank God for that. Entitled mother is forcing me to marry my cousin to make her a US citizen. So I was going to post this on my main account before I came to my senses. This isn't really a throwaway, but more an account I'll use to share stories of my entitled family, basically my mum. Before you call bullcrap and start joking around saying Sweet Home Alabama, Roll Tide, 1. Believe me, I wish this was bullcrap, but unfortunately it's an actual situation I'm facing. 2. We are Dominican. Don't know if that changes everything. 3. I hate that song. So, I'm 20 and male. Cousin is 19 and female. Spanish was my first language. I have a third cousin in the Dominican Republic. They are not well off in that country, and her mum is a little neglectful. At this point, it feels like my mum cares more about her than me, but whatever, she deserves it. She's a good kid who does well in school and wants to move to the US to go to nursing school. She can't, however, because she isn't a legal citizen. My mum decided that it would be the best plan for me to go to the Dominican Republic in June or July and marry my third cousin to make her legal. She brought this up a few years ago, but I thought she was joking. Apparently she wasn't, because recently she brought this plan up again, and she actually was talking about how she already booked flights for the Dominican Republic and crap. What the hell? I'm in a relationship already, and my mum literally told me that she doesn't give a frick about my personal life. All she cares is about going to the Dominican Republic and forcing me to marry my cousin. Thankfully, I talked about the plan with my significant other, and they are supportive. Due to the pandemic and not knowing if it's going to get worse, I think it's safe to say we are not flying out of there. But my mum, for some reason, still acts like we are still going. Basically, I marry her and stay married for a year, then we divorce amicably. My mum pockets any money that's made from this, if any. When I try to downright refuse this was met with screaming, physical anger, and threats to kick me out. I'm afraid to go to any family members because I don't know what's going to happen. Righto, and our next post is by user Random Mallow, titled, "My dad was looking through very private files." So this happened just yesterday. The cast are ED, my dad, me is me IRL, mum who did nothing, mum, and sister that did nothing, sister. So I was using my phone browsing through Reddit. I checked what my dad was watching because he usually watches K-drama. I liked K-drama, so I checked what he was watching anyway. And when I checked my dad, he was going through all my files, which firstly he had no right to do, so I scolded him and told him he has no right to go through private school files. My school files were all supposed to be looked through by only my teacher and other school officials anyway. After I scolded him, he slapped me and said he has a right to look through my files because he paid for my school fee, which doesn't even do much other than pay for the necessities. Yet he said because he paid for my school fees, he has the right to go through all my files. I know this one was quite short, but thanks for reading this. Love, some random guy on the internet that has no life. God, it almost sounds like I wrote that story, Jesus. Anyway guys, this one's by user That One Nerd, titled, "You're shopping for someone else?" Yeah, right. So, some context. Because of this pandemic, 2 families within my family's friend group are unable to leave their houses due to one or more of them being immunocompromised. One of the families, A, gets groceries delivered to their house, but sometimes my mum and I will go buy stuff for them. But the other family, B, which only consists of 2 people, don't go through as much food and they have a ton saved up. So when they need something, my mum and I will go buy it for them. This story is about family B. Last week, my mum sent me to the grocery store to not only pick up shopping for our family, but for family B too. One of the items on the list was hand sanitizer, and because some people are crazy, they will do anything to get the sanitizer. I went into the store, fully expecting there not to be any left, but was able to find some, albeit small bottles, of hand sanitizer. Now, the sign said 1 bottle per household, and I had asked a store employee if it would be alright if I got 2, 1 for my family and 1 for family B. I got the okay and continued to shop. As I was looking for bagels, the bread section was torn apart and things were literally everywhere. This woman, the entitled mother, comes up to me and taps me on the shoulder. Me, somewhat freaked out as I didn't see her come up behind me, is like, "Oh, sorry, I'll move in a bit. Why do you have 2 bottles of hand sanitizer in your cart? It's 1 per family." I'm shopping for 2 families right now. I find the bagels I was looking for, put them in my cart, then get started on getting the shopping for family B, walking away from the entitled mother as I pulled up the list. "Hey!" She grabs me by the shoulder and yanks me away from my cart. "You can't have 2 bottles of hand sanitizer. It's 1 per family." Me, shaken up as I don't like being grabbed by strangers, say, "And I said I'm shopping for 2 families." The entitled mother looked at my cart and scoffs. She reaches in and grabs one of the bottles of hand sanitizer. "Like hell you are. I need this for my family, and there's none left, so I'll just be taking this." I grab her arm and yank the bottle from her grasp, put it back in my cart, and start walking off. "Stop her! She just stole from me! Thief! Someone stop her!" A store employee stops me and asks what happened. She says, "That child," pointing at me, "is taking 2 bottles of hand sanitizer for 1 family, and there's none left and I need 1. First off, I'm not a child. Second off, I'm shopping for a family friend who can't leave their house due to a compromised immune system. The store employee sighs and says, "Okay, ma'am," referring to me, "you can go. Sorry for the inconvenience." I leave, but as I am, I hear the entitled mother yelling and berating the store employee. I finished shopping and left the store. Family B was very happy to finally have some hand sanitizer, and so was my mum. Alrighty, with that story done, we're on to our next one by TreeStar2018, titled, Entitled Parents Invite Themselves on a Vacation and Then Complain It's Not Good Enough for Them. I'm on my mobile. I apologize in advance for any spelling or grammar errors. I, 32 female, was talking with my mum the other day, and mentioned a family we hadn't seen since I was about 10. She told me that after a vacation they joined us on, they decided to stop being friends with them. Here is the story. My parents planned a vacation to take me and my brother, 29, to Yellowstone when we were 8 and 10. They told the entitled parents about the vacation they were planning, and they invited themselves to go with us. They figured it would be fun for us all to go together, as they had kids the same age as me and my brother. Not wanting to be rude to the family or cause issues, since we went to a Bible study at their house every Sunday, my parents included them in our plans. My mum warned them the cabins we were staying in were extremely rustic. Think no walls separating bedrooms, mismatched furniture, and small. They said that would be fine and had my mum book the cabin next to them. Everything seemed to be going pretty well until our vacation actually started. My parents wanted to start driving to Yellowstone fairly early. We lived in Utah, so they wanted to leave around 7 to 8. The entitled parents didn't show up around until 11, and my parents couldn't get a hold of them before this. They weren't even answering their phones. So, this ticked my mum off, and she asked the entitled parents what happened to leaving early, and they told her, "Oh, we like to sleep in on weekends." My dad told my mum to just let it go and to still try and have a good day. When we arrived, the entitled parents instantly turned their noses up at our accommodations and said they wouldn't be good enough for their kids. My mum told the entitled parents that she warned them they were rustic. The entitled parents had friends in the main part of Yellowstone and told my parents they were going to go visit them. My mum reminded them that they had bought food for dinner for all of us, and the entitled parents assured my mum that they would be back for dinner at 7. So my parents cooked a really nice dinner for everyone, We had steak, potatoes, corn, dessert, and waited on the entitled parents to show up. At 8, when the family still wasn't there, they decided to go eat without them, as they had no way of contacting them. We went to bed, and around midnight, the entitled parents showed up. They told my parents the cabins they booked weren't good enough for them, and they would be staying with their other friends for the rest of their vacation. They also said it was a mistake to include my family on their trip, because of the cabins that were booked, and they had to start driving so early in the day to accommodate us. My mum and dad had enough of their attitude and reminded them that they were the ones to join us without being invited, and said they were fine with the cabins we booked and our travel plans for leaving. They also told them they were inconsiderate for bailing on dinner and should have told them if they had no intention of having it with us. At that point, the other family left and we never saw them again. Jesus, screw those guys. Our next post is by user mbraid2017, titled, "Put my friend on the phone now." I guess this lady qualifies as an entitled grandma. So this just happened and I'm still shaking my damn head. I manage an automotive repair center in the southern US. This morning I had a very nice elderly lady walk in. She was wearing the new normal face mask and rubber gloves, and asked us to diagnose a few issues she was having with her vehicle. I proceeded to check her in and she elected to sit quietly in the lobby. An hour later, her friend calls and the following conversation ensues. Our car star M, yours truly, EOL, entitled old lady. So I'm like, "Thank you for calling company name. This is M. How may I help you?" "Yes, this is EOL. My friend Mrs. Friend's name was going to bring her vehicle in for y'all to look at, and I wanted to see if she made it in." "Oh yes ma'am. Miss Friend's name is here and we are looking at her vehicle now." "That's nice. Can you put her on the phone for me?" "Ma'am, I'm terribly sorry, but with the global pandemic going on, we are closely following CDC guidelines, and that includes not sharing phones. I would be more than happy to relay a message to her and relay her response back to you if you would like." "That's ridiculous. She's not sick and you don't sound sick, so just put her on the phone." "I understand that Miss Friend's name doesn't appear to be sick, and that I don't appear to be sick, but that's not how this virus works. We're trying to keep all our customers and employees safe by following CDC guidelines, so I will be happy to relay a message to Miss Friend's name, but again we are not sharing phones." Well, bless your heart. This is Southern speak for, "You're an idiot and go copulate with yourself violently. You are the rudest and most annoying person I've ever had to speak with. Now, unless you want me to speak with your manager and make no mistake I will have you fired, put Miss Friend's name on the phone now." "Ma'am, I am the manager, and I'm not going to continue tying up the phone lines and my time by arguing in circles with you. Now, unless you would like me to relay a message to Miss Friend's name, I'm going to say have a great day and end this call." Well, bless your heart. I'm gonna call your boss, corporate, my attorney, the local news station. I had had enough at this point and rudely interrupted her tirade. "Look, I have the number for the governor's office and our state and local reps if you would like those." What? You know what? We're done. I'll just call Miss Friend's name on her cell phone." Click. She hangs up. 2 seconds later, Miss Friend's name's cell phone rings in the lobby, and Miss Friend's name asked EOL why she wasted 5 minutes of my time arguing instead of just calling on her cell phone to begin with. Miss Friend's name apologized for EOL when we finished with her vehicle, and tipped both myself and the tech that worked on her vehicle for our troubles. Rightio, our next post is by user Po Jasco, titled, "I will be lonely and loveless forever, because I'm chubby and didn't share my Disney Plus account with Karen and her son. Here's a story to keep your poor quarantine souls entertained. The stars: myself, Karen, Karen's kid, brief cameo of the HEB store manager. This one kinda hurt to endure, not gonna lie. I'm not sure how the rest of the world has done stuff like this, but this past month, we in my hometown have treated our shopping days like Black Friday. Wake up real early, stand in line outside of the store, wait, etc. I decided to shop on a Saturday morning. Woke up early, went to HEB, Texas-based grocery store. While waiting in line, I decided to start Star Wars 3. I haven't seen it yet and have only just seen episode 1, 2, 7, 8, and this last Christmas, 9. A cute woman and her kid had just queued up behind me. Her kid is running around and she's trying to control him. I turn the volume on my headphones up. A few minutes later, I feel someone poke on my shoulder. I turn around to see who they are, what they want, and it's Karen. I pause the movie and take out one earpiece. So, is that Disney Plus you're watching? Ah, it is. I'm catching up on Star Wars. Oh, my son loves Star Wars. She pronounced it Stara Wars, like for real. It's not as cool as Harry Potter, and I'm more of a Trekkie myself, but it's not bad. I thought that was all the conversation was going to be, so I go back to streaming my Mouse House subscription. She pokes my shoulder again. I'm like, yes? She has a pen out and it looks like she's going to start writing. Karen says, so, what are your login credentials? I'm sorry? Oh, to your Disney Plus. My husband and kid love Star Wars and Marvel, and I could go for a classic Disney fix. To that, I just turn around. Holy crap, how do people like that even exist? Karen decides to get in front of me and get in my face like she's gonna fight me. Excuse me? Did you just ignore me? I asked for your login stuff? We don't have anything to do at home. How could you be so selfish? I don't even know who you are. Does that matter, boy? You're the only person here who is alone, and I think I know why. Not only do you take up 5 spots, but you're selfish. I know I'm big, but not that big. I identify as Peter Quill from Infinity War, chubby, but not obese. So anyway, Karen is crapping an unholy brick about not getting what she wants until somebody interrupts. It's the store manager. Apparently, this woman had upset somebody a few feet up ahead, and now the manager is here to investigate. Store manager says, excuse me, but can I help with something? I explain the problem. Karen gives him her version of events. Store manager says, sir, I'm so sorry that you had to endure this. Please come to the front of the line and be one of the first people to shop today. At that, no joke, I swear I heard Karen cry like a 5-year-old child. God, screw people like that. Anyway, our next post is by user Clispy Blacken, titled, I have to give your son money because I beat him in a game? So this story started a week ago, and it's been on my mind since. So I have an Xbox and play Rocket League. For people who don't know, it's a game where you are cars and you're playing soccer. Now in this game, there are things called trading, in which I'm involved in the community. You can basically buy items to make your car look better. Now to the story. I was just playing my normal Rocket League game on an early Saturday morning. I've been on a winning streak in ones. If you don't know what ones is, that's 1v1 games. Soon I get into the match with Entitled Kid. Now the game goes normally. I score some goals, he scores some. But halfway through the game he becomes really toxic. And what a saves me. Now, if you're in Rocket League community, you know everyone toxic does this when you miss an easy save. The only problem with this is that I was beating him 8-3. I quickly message the chat 8-3 in response, but he says, yeah, but you're trash. I'm confused, but I don't really care. The rest of the game continues on with him being really toxic. With about 30 seconds left, he messaged me again, FF. For people who don't play the game, this means forfeit, and he wants me to leave the game and let him win. I said no, and quickly reminded him the score, which was 12-5. He then responded, but you're better than me and can get your rank back. And yes, this was a competitive match, and I was about Platinum 2 at the time trying to go for Diamond. Again, I responded no. Finally the game ends, and I say GG and leave. Not even 1 minute later, the Entitled Kid messages me on Xbox. Bro, you're garbage and should quit the game. Again, I just say the score of the game, 12-5. He then says to join his party. I join and I don't say anything, and he doesn't either. About 1 minute of silence, then this 10-year-old Fortnite player starts to talk about how trash and is basically cussing me out. Again, I don't care, and I'm used to this stuff. Finally, his mum hears him. We will call her Karen. She's like, Entitled Kid, who are you talking to? Some kid harassing me? Yes, I was harassing him. Haven't said one word yet, but when he said that, I started laughing. Soon I hear a different voice in the mic. She says, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "Who are you?" "I'm Entitled Kid's mum and I heard you're harassing him." "Sorry miss, but I'm not, and your son's lying." "My son doesn't lie. He's an angel, and you're like 18 harassing a small child." Now, at times I can have a monotone voice, but I was nowhere near close to 18, and I was only 14. I'm like, "Miss, you gotta believe me." "How can I believe you? Where do you live?" I responded jokingly and said Mars. She didn't take this well and went ballistic on me. Finally, she asks her son what should they do. I can't hear a kid, but then Karen comes back on and says, "Give me all your items and in your game and buy more for my son." I responded with a no and asked if she was stupid. She's like, "Why can't he have your items?" "Because I spent my own money on them." "Well, give it to my son since you harassed him and gave him PTSD. Yes, she said that. I again respond, "No, just give him your items." Now, I was actually getting mad as I did have some semi-expensive items, like some black market decals which cost about $5 to $30. So I'm like, "Sorry miss, but no." "But you beat my son in a game, so he should have your items." "No wonder your son has a bad attitude. You raised him." She then went ballistic again and started cussing me out. I soon just left the party and have blocked them. This was a super weird experience, and it was really funny for a Saturday morning. Alright, with that one done, we're on to our next post by Strawberry Brisk, titled, "Entitled Mother Tries to Get Me Fired." Now, when I was 16, I worked as a hostess for a restaurant. I had a lot of fun interacting with the kids and helping such nice customers. I was familiar with some of our regulars, who were delightful people and had very few hard customers. But we had one who was just terrible. This woman and her 8 kids come in one day while I'm on shift for lunch, a particularly busy Sunday afternoon. I loved kids, so I looked forward to helping these folks, or maybe even striking conversation while they waited for a seat. I greeted them with my peppy, "Hi, welcome to Friendlies. How many will be joining us today?" The woman, who had a Karen vibe flowing from her, looked at me and said, "Oh, hello, you must be new. It'll be 9 of us, 1 adult and 8 children." I nodded and pointed out that we were busy, which should have been obvious, and told her I could put her down for a wait list, and that it would only be 5 minutes for a larger table, since all the larger groups had been finishing. The lady looks at me and says, "What about our table?" I was confused, because we had no call-ahead reservations. They would be written on my podium if there was. So I asked and said, "I'm sorry, did you call ahead?" She looked almost offended at that question. She shook her head and says, No, we come every Sunday at 12 p.m. There is always a table saved for us." She pointed to a table in the center of the dining room and said, "That one right there. It's always free and clean and ready for us. Did you give our table away?" I didn't understand. Nobody told me about a woman who comes in every Sunday at 12 p.m. with 8 kids. I also wasn't aware we saved tables for people unless they called ahead. Maybe she did call ahead and it got lost somewhere, or one of the servers didn't inform me we had a reservation. "I'm sorry there was no reservation made for that table. Did you reserve it?" I asked, doing my best to sound professional while working through what the problem was. "No, we don't call ahead. That table is always available at 12 p.m. on Sunday. It is our table." That confused me more. Did they assume the table was theirs because it was open every Sunday? Did they assume the waitstaff saved them a table each time? As a new worker and a kid, I was worried I had done something wrong. None of the waitstaff came to me saying not to seat at that table, nor did the waitress, whose section it was, alert me that table 18 was special. I was super worried, thinking that it was my fault, that I accidentally gave this woman's table away. Miss, we want our lunch," one of the lady's kids said to me. The woman, after hearing her child pipe up, raised her voice and said, "Yes, miss, we want our lunch. I cannot believe you gave away our table. How dare you?" She grabbed one of her sons by the shoulders, pulling him in front of her and says, "Do you see how hungry my children are? This is your fault." The people seated began to get quiet and stare, and looking back on it now, it was probably her goal to make an audience. I'm sorry, miss, she cuts me off. No, 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 no. I do not want excuses. You gave away our table. That table was for us. My children are hungry. You were negligent and obviously not competent enough to work as a hostess if you're giving customers saved seats away. Perhaps you'd better be a dishwasher, or at a job where common sense isn't a necessity, she yelled. I felt so ashamed. The whole restaurant was staring at me and whispering. I think someone was recording too, but I'm not sure. Before I could speak, she hollered, "Manager, I want a manager. Hello, manager?" My manager and friend of the family, who I will call Mel, rushes to the front and says, "Is everything okay, ma'am?" "Absolutely not. Your employee gave away our table. I don't know where you find these new employees, but this is ridiculous." I stood there, so embarrassed. My manager looked at me, then to the woman and said, "I'm sorry, what was the name of the reservation?" The woman's jaw dropped. She took a close look at my manager's name tag before finishing. "Mel, we come here every Sunday at 12 p.m, and every Sunday at 12 p.m, there is a table open for us. Maybe you should have told," she looked at my name tag before finishing, "OP, before sitting people." My manager shook her head. "Well, Sundays at 12 p.m. we usually aren't this busy, so I could understand how you'd be able to sit at the same table each time. However, because the Big E, Eastern States Expo, we are very busy. I'm sorry, but you'll just have to wait." "I refuse to wait. You know we come here every Sunday at 12 p.m. We should not have to call ahead because OP gave our table away." Mel remained professional, replying, "Ma'am, it isn't your table. You didn't call ahead and reserve it, and it wasn't given away. It was open when we had a large group, so OP sat the group. If you didn't call to reserve it, we can't reserve it." "But we always sit here on Sundays at 12 p.m, the woman hollered. Mel, who somehow kept calm while this lunatic yelled at her, replied, "Ma'am, if you continue to disrupt our guests, we will ask you to leave." The woman shut her mouth, looking around at the people dining, who had then changed their gaze to her. She said, I demand that we get our meal paid for because of this situation, or free kids' meals. I want my kids' meals paid for." "I'm sorry, but we won't be doing that. You've harassed my staff and disrupted my customers. Please leave the restaurant." This is where it gets crazy. Fair warning. The lady was so upset, she basically began calling racism, saying we weren't sitting her because she was white, and that because I was Spanish, I'm not Spanish, black and white mix, that I was discriminating. Mel, who is white, firmly said, "You will either leave or I will call the police. Please leave." The woman who pulled out her phone dramatically says, "Oh, you're gonna call the police? I don't think so. I am going to call the police and you will be getting shut down. And everyone will be fired and arrested," she said, as she dialed on her phone and called the police. Keep in mind she had like 4 children under 5 who looked terrified. One was even crying. The police showed up, and to spare you the whole Sunday at 12 p.m. stuff, the woman was escorted out. They almost arrested her because of the scene that she was making. Mel said that she didn't want the woman back, and if she did, she would be trespassing. After that, the day went on normally, with Mel offering discounts to everyone who had to endure it. Only 2 people took the offering. I continued to work there for about 2 months before I moved on. I'm still friends with all the staff, and we still joke about it today. I don't know if the woman ever went back. Update. So I texted my old manager to see whatever happened with the lady. Apparently, she came back not once, not twice, but 3 times, and got banned from another location. She went back the first time, when I already had left, and basically did the same thing with the other hostess, who is now a waitress. That girl is my favorite. Once tipped her $20 for a $40 meal. Just loved her that much. Before the police were called, she ran out and said she'd be back. The second time, she came with her husband, who was an officer of the law. He was a security guard. Best bit, a patron knew her, and apparently her and her husband were married for years, but not all of the kids were his. She wasn't arrested, but cited. I think the officer took pity on the children and didn't want to see their mother dragged off to jail. Third time, Mel wasn't on shift. She planned this too. Sadly for this woman, the whole staff had been alerted to call the police if this lady came back. The other manager, Vicky, who was having none of it, said, "Sure, one moment please." Went to the back and called the police. Went back to the woman and struck up friendly conversation while the staff was preparing the table. They were not. She was promptly arrested in front of those poor kids. As far as me and Mel know, she hasn't returned, but did call corporate. Nothing came of it because corporate never visited or cited the restaurant. Also, for everyone who knows Friendlies and the Big E, love you guys. Didn't know how many people would know of it either. My child can bully because she's bullying a freak. I had a bully in school, and she was the devil. She had a weird pleasure in bullying me because I have dyspraxia, and her mother supported it. When I was in year 6, grade 7, the bully/entitled kid just pushed me out of my nerves, and when she insulted me, I just said, "Well, at least my dad's not in jail." Not my best moment. And then at home, I guess she cried to her mum, and when I was at school, entitled mother yelled at me, "You tramp, you're a freak, so my daughter can bully you." A wanted to kill her, so I just replied, "I may be a freak, but hey ho, I ain't a tramp." Again, not my finest moment. And I swear to God, she looked like she was gonna kill me. The next day, entitled kid and entitled mother came over to my mum and said, "Your daughter called me a tramp and insulted my daughter." I was too shy to tell my mum of the bully, so I got in trouble. Our next post is by user Exotic Potato Tornado, titled, "Entitled Mum slaps my brother for trying to grab a toy from her child." Quick little thing beforehand. I'm on mobile, so the formatting may be bad, and I'm sorry about that. I hope it's at least kinda legible. This story takes place when my brother was really young, about 8 years old. We were at a school function and he wanted to use a toy that another kid was playing with. Our cast are entitled mum, entitled kid, my mum, brother, me, obviously. Now, let's get on to the story. Brother's like, "Can I use your toy?" "No." "Please?" "No." Okay, so for a little bit of context, my brother has autism and he was like 8 at the time, so he didn't know any better. My brother starts to reach for the toy and the entitled mum's like, "What are you doing to my child?" My brother turns around and is like, "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am." Entitled mother grabs my brother's wrist and says, "What do you think you're doing?" By now, he's starting to get really anxious and scared. Entitled mother slaps my brother and says, "Don't ever touch my child again," and she lets go of his wrist. My brother starts crying and runs away. Now to where me and mum were. Mum says, "Hey, my name, have you seen brother?" "No, have you?" Mum starts to get a little scared and says, "I haven't seen him. I'll go look for him." I look everywhere for him, but he's nowhere to be found. I run back to mum and say, "I can't find him." Mum starts to freak out. "I'm gonna ask the teachers if they've seen him." Okay. A few minutes later, over the intercom, "Has anyone seen brother's name? We are looking for brother's name." People started to look around and we still couldn't find him. A while later, I had given up. "Mum, can you drive me home? I'm tired. I want to keep helping, but I'm tired." Okay. We get into the car and she drives me home. I go inside as mum waits outside to make sure I'm okay. It was at this point that I went upstairs to go to sleep and then heard the soft crying from my brother's room. "Brother!" My name. "Where, Sniff, were you?" "I was looking for you." He ended up running home after the woman slapped him. He got in through the unlocked back door. He never told us who it was that hit him because he was scared. Edit. Yes, I am aware that my brother is pretty entitled since he begged for the toy after being told no. I understand that, and I know that it may have been partly my brother's fault for being a bit of an entitled brat. But still, the mother had no right to hit him, and if anyone is the victim in this situation, it would probably be my brother, since first of all, he didn't understand what he was doing. Please don't put the blame on our parents. It's not their fault. And instead of explaining what he was doing wrong, the mother slapped him and yelled at him. Our next post is by user Snowy3066, titled, "Karen wants me to sword fight her kid." This happened yesterday and I was typing it out last night, but I passed out. If there are any grammar mistakes, I am sorry. I have been training to fight with wooden swords I carve for a few years now, and I had my first random challenger today. I was practicing in my backyard with my face mask on. A few important things to know for later is that there is a large tree in the center of my backyard, and from the upper right to the lower left, there is a line that divides the yard into a rocky section and a grassy section. There is also a concrete patio with a grill and a table. By the travel is a large red bucket with many weapons sticking out of it, all ones I carved. Also, I was kind of on edge because I did a tarot reading for myself the morning before it happened, and it pretty much told me to be cautious and watch out for those you can tell are dark. Anyways, with the scene set, let us start. I was casually practicing with my two favorite short swords, when I saw a kid and his mum walk by without face masks on. The kid stopped and watched. This boy was probably 15 to 16, as he had a school shirt that indicated him as a sophomore. He seemed transfixed when I looked at him. When my arms were tired, I stopped and saw he and his mum were watching. I looked at them and nodded slightly to acknowledge them without talking as I was trying to regain my breath. I then noticed the mum had the classic Karen look, haircut, expensive sunglasses, and the works. She says, "Hey Beardy, do you teach classes?" I took a second to regain my breath before I said anything. Yes, I have a beard because I haven't needed to shave it. Never taught official classes, but I used to teach the neighborhood kids last summer for a huge fake Hunger Games. The fake Hunger Games were a tradition in every summer in my cul-de-sac since I moved in. I was pretty much the best cause Jason, a 17-year-old who has a special staff that is the only non-wooden weapon allowed, a staff made from a plastic pipe. I trained pretty much just to beat him, and I got good enough to beat not only him, but everyone else in the cul-de-sac. The boy was freaking out a bit due to him seeming to love Hunger Games, and says, "Can I fight you?" This was amusing to hear, as I never was challenged before. I was the one used to challenging people. I smiled and laughed a bit. Heh. Well, I'd love to, but because of the virus, we shouldn't get close, and swords are for close combat. The mum seemed annoyed. She looked at me and said the most stupid thing ever, so fudging heard. And trust me, I know how bullcrap it is because COVID was a huge topic we often discussed in microbiology class. Us white Christians don't need to worry about it. God sent the virus down to cleanse the world of non-believers, other races, those who are mentally ill, and those who are gay. It won't hurt us believers. I was kinda used to hearing bullcrap like that, but nothing that intense. I wasn't Christian at all, but I was raised one. I then realized I was wearing an old shirt from the church my family used to go to because I wore it to sleep due to it being comfy, and forgot to swap shirts in the morning. I realized it would be awkward to say I ain't a Christian, suffered from ADHD, and that I'm bi, especially to a lady that could be high on weed. I live in Colorado, and it's always a possibility. I was kinda mad, but I can't really show emotions well. I try to say something that won't make her mad at me. Sorry, but I just don't want to take any risks. The Karen seemed somewhat mad. She pulls a wallet out and pulls $5 from it, and says, "I'll give you $5 to fight him. I bet you can't beat him." Her challenging me was a bad choice, as I was someone who used to spend hours beating bosses that you shouldn't beat in games. Plus, money is a motivator, and I haven't had a good fight in a while. So I say, fine, I'll fight him. We can either fight till submission or a 3-hit kill rule. Also, don't yell at me if he gets hurt. I was used to 3-hit, but I could withstand a fight till submission. I look at the boy, and he was kind of muscular, but not too much to worry me that he would easily overpower me. I look back at the Karen, and she says, "He won't get hurt. Now, what do you want to do, son?" "I'll fight him till submission." I say, "Are you sure? This way of fighting risks injury more." "Yeah." "Come on in then." The boy enters my backyard, and so does his mum. He looks through the weapons and chooses a huge staff, which I call the rally club. It was 6 feet long and mainly only used for tricks. A friend tried to use it before, and I used 2 daggers. I just held it off with both while approaching him before poking him 3 times. I shake my head, remembering that. I recommend using a different weapon. That one's slow and is only able to be used well after serious training. The boy nods and puts it back before pulling out the two most dangerous wood swords that I made, and they belonged more to my sister as they were the only ones that she used. They were heavy long swords that I made to fit her style, and she used only one at a time. He looks to me and I shake my head. Sorry, those are kinda dangerous when used by people that haven't trained with them before. Karen stepped in. I am sure he can use them. You play Beat Saber, right, Brandon? I realized Brandon was her son's name and smiled. Yeah, but these are heavy. He pulls them back and I set out a few weapons for him to try. He soon settles on having a primary set of a long sword and a short sword. One of them was one of my favorite ones, and having a dagger as a weapon to use in case he was unarmed. I grabbed two thinner short swords and two of my thicker daggers. The daggers were just normally a thing to make me feel comfortable and to not worry about being defenseless if he disarms me. Brandon's like, ready? Yeah, I am. We proceed to get on opposite sides of the yard and count down together. Once we got to 0, he charges at me. I walk forward and get ready. He did, however, do something I didn't expect. He threw the dagger at my face. I partially blocked it, but the move caused my glasses to fall off. I was suddenly glad I practiced something without my glasses on. It was hard though, as he managed to strike me twice, while I only got him once cause I was getting used to them being off. He did retreat when I got his thigh though. I walked forward and he charges again. I was however ready, but couldn't tell if he picked up the dagger while retreating, so I assumed he had it. Only reason I didn't try grabbing my glasses was cause that would leave me open. He tries to go for the double overhead, but I block. I hear the sound of wood cracking. The swords were unsafe now, so I tossed them aside, jumped back up, and pulled my daggers out. I was going to be more careful. I charged, mad that he broke the swords that I trained with many times. I block his attacks while dealing my own. I disarm him in the process, and he runs. He ends up grabbing the rally club. He held it the same way my friend did. He charges, and I do the combo that I made for this sort of combat situation. I ready my left dagger to my right, making an upside down V. He then tries to jab with it like a spear, so I push it to the side and get him once in the wrist, once in each forearm, and a final time on his left shoulder. I then disarm him and point the dagger at his neck. This had tired me out, obviously. I honor your valor, but you seem to have lost. Do you submit? Yeah dude, just chill. I submit. I relax for a second before jumping as the Karen yells at me. How dare you hurt my son? She grabbed him, hugged him, and then looked at me like I was a murderer. I thought you wouldn't be mad. Also, you can keep the money. It was a good battle. Yeah mum, let's just go The Karen cuts him off and pulled her phone out. I sigh and look at her, deciding I'll drop the bomb here. If you're gonna be mad that your son lost to a bi dude that has ADHD, then you can leave. She looked at me in shock. She dragged her son away from me. Wait, you're an invalid? Why do your caretakers let an invalid like you see the sun and walk among us normal people? I always hated those that bullied me because of my ADHD, but only a few had dared to call me that word. I take all my rage and bottle it up so I can stay calm. I've learned to live with the normal world. Now look, you've pushed me far enough today. Get out of here. The Karen dragged her now quiet son out of the backyard and they continued their walk in silence. I was glad that I beat the kid, but I encountered him this morning, when he knocked on my door alone, and he now had a mask on. He's like, hey dude. Hey. Sorry about yesterday. I have to do whatever my mum says, or she gets mad and yells at me at home. Don't worry, I recommend you train on your own some. Yeah, you really beat me hard, and you were right about the huge one. Are your glasses okay? Yep, they weren't damaged at all, just dusted up a bit. Good, I should go now. See you later. Brandon then ran off. I was glad that he came and apologized. Our next post is by Jacob James Trowbridge, titled, I am briefly held hostage by my own entitled grandmother. Sit back and grab a snack folks, this will be a long one. Our cast for tonight's special. Me, yours truly, the pseudo-kidnappee in our tale. My mother, my father, my granddad, my grandfather on my dad's side, not sure if entitled or not. Nan, my grandmother on my mum's side, Grandma, my grandmother on my dad's side, also the mother of all fudging entitled parents, and so, without further ado, a fair, semi-rural town in northern England is where we lay our scene. I am an idiot child. My parents broke up a few months after they learned of my conception, but did so on good terms and never had any serious fighting between them. Oh no, that falls to my grandma, but all in good time. My mother's side of the family is pretty standard and has nobody in particular worth going into for this. But my dad's side was an unholy hot mess. My granddad had an ultra-religious, ultra-disciplinarian father who took the ideological crusade method of parenting. And so, at 18, my granddad did the only logical thing, got drunk, came home, tripped over a spade, angrily javelin-tossed said spade through, and I meant through, a shed, got lambasted and blurted out that he was joining the army. And he did. Paratroopers, in fact. He fought in two places, Northern Ireland and the Republic of who the frick knows. Sometimes it's Sudan, other times Libya, or Lebanon, Cambodia, even Vietnam, despite him being about 3 during the Vietnam War. I don't know, and apparently neither does he. We also think he's a narcissist, but we don't press that. More on that later, stay tuned. He married grandma and had 3 children. The eldest, a daughter, my auntie, who put up with her family for 18 years. And so at 18, she did the only logical thing. Flee to the USA, marry, drop the English accent, and duck low until things blew over. Middle child. My dad, a short pasty guy who likes video games and not having malevolent parents. He achieved one of these goals. Youngest, my other auntie, who shared my dad's ambitions to not have a malevolent parentage. Also has a deathly phobia of ketchup, for unrelated reasons. Hey, you in the back, stop laughing, I'm completely serious. And so, that brings us to entitled grandma, henceforth just grandma. My granddad was lax on the reins of discipline, to say the least. Grandma was a draconian authoritarian, and took discipline to the point of weaponizing it. We can confidently say that she was a psychopath, untreated and dangerously clever. If you're having trouble, picture a 60-year-old female Ramsay Bolton. Also a smoker. That too. You know what? Screw it. Grandma's now Ramsay. Ramsay's favorite hobby was to manipulate people and play them off of each other. I am completely certain that she married my granddad because he was a narcissist and she knew exactly how to massage his ego to get exactly what she wanted. After that, she practiced on her children. If she wanted to punish my dad, she would drag his little sister in by the wrist and press a goddamn carving knife to her sternum. This should give you a good idea of what she was like. She was a lot more psychotic and controlling than most entitled parents. She's the one who would spread a few rumors to get 2 entitled parents to attack each other, tooth and claw for her amusement. That's what my dad grew up in. After serving in the army, my granddad worked on an oil rig out in the North Sea as some kind of safety inspector. High paid and out for months at a time, leaving my dad and his siblings at Ramsay's mercy. That is until granddad had a minor spinal injury, which meant he couldn't work on the rig anymore. Now, that sounds bad, but he got a bloody massive compensation fund. So he came home with a sore back, but a metric fuck ton of moolah to spoil his family with. Now that sounds good, but it meant Ramsay had another toy to play with, and hundreds of thousands of pounds to boot. That is not a good combination. My mother enters the scene somewhere around 2000, and doesn't really see much of any of this. But I'm born in 2003, and that kicks off a fudging civil war between the family, chiefly between Mum and Ramsay. See, Ramsay had grown to dislike her family, but she adored and cooed over me, and always wanted more. So now she actually had a goal, break my mum off from me so that Ramsay could take control. Dad was young, confused and weary and couldn't do much. Mum was similar. One auntie was in the USA, the other was paralyzed by the mere thought of resistance. Granddad didn't have the fighting spirit to resist his wife either, and he knew it. Aside from that, we think that he understood what was going on and disliked it. but he did also adore me and probably wanted to have custody over me just as much as Ramsey. He wasn't a willing participant per se, more like passively supportive of Ramsey's schemes. Now, please bear in mind that this is only what I've been told. There were probably more games being played that I'm not aware of. First, Ramsey attacked my non-dysfunctional family. Rumors began to circulate. Family friends were trash-talking my nan on my mum's side. Nan actually secretly disliked Uncle X. Uncle X hated Auntie Y's cooking, and so on. None of them were true, but to an outsider looking in, this looked like a dog-eat-dog world. Then she turned to me directly. Mum had me most of the time, so Ramsey started demanding via dad and granddad, of course, that she, have me over more often. She puts lots of emphasis on the money and how good my life would be here, and how unfair it was that she'd only see me for X days that month. Ramsey was playing the game from another angle too. She started turning Mum against her family. She spread more rumors, claiming to be proof that it was actually Mum who had a dysfunctional family. Some of those rumors targeted Mum too. Relatives X, Y, and Z disliked Mum, and Mum disliked cousins A, B, and C. Bullcrap, but calculated bullcrap. Mum grew more distant from her own family as they tried again and again to sort things out. The scheme started to collapse right as Ramsey went in for the kill. She shared grave concerns about how much Mum actually cared for me. Side note, I am less than a year old at this point, and it's winter. Mum is going through all the stresses of a normal new mother on top of this. She didn't love me, she said. Sometimes she forgot to feed me, and Ramsey had to breastfeed me herself. I really fudge and hope that she never actually did. She went as far as to say that Mum was deranged, maybe even insane. She had Granddad do their dirty work as well, but that had proved a bad idea. He got drunk at a barbecue and started railing to Nan about Mum, and I'm paraphrasing here. Have you ever noticed how Mum never loves me whenever nobody else is around? Nan is visibly shocked. Oh no, Mum loves me ever so much. No, you've got to listen to me. You've got to believe me. You've got to listen. By this point, he's literally grabbing Nan by the shoulders and shaking her, so Ramsey dives in to salvage things and get him home. But the damage was done. All suspicions were raised about Ramsey and Granddad, and the rumors began circling back. Mum's end of the family realized what was happening and started, for lack of a better term, gearing up for war. That is, except Mum herself. Remember what I said earlier about her being delicate at that time? She had been depressed through high school and was already brittle on that front. Now she was a new mother, and on top of that, she was being hounded by Ramsey. Not only that, but Ramsey focused all of her efforts on Mum after the barbecue incident. She staged interventions, aimed at knocking at Mum's self-esteem, her self-worth, and even making her doubt her own sanity. It was gaslighting in full effect, and it was taking effect. At this point, Mum is a wreck, but her family have mobilized for a war, and they're doing all they can to support her and me. Finally, one night, things turn around. My aunt on my mum's side gives her a pep talk. She says that Ramsey has been manipulating her. Everyone can see it. She laid out evidence of Ramsey's attacks and propped up her nerves. Mum had to take control, or Ramsey would win. 6-month-old me was with Ramsey at that point, but due to be collected the next day. Aunt fired Mum up. When she went to pick me up tomorrow, she was going to lay down the law to Ramsey. She was going to tell her she wasn't welcome with Mum's family, and not welcome with me unless at Mum's specific and direct permission. Tomorrow arrives. Mum comes in the evening as planned. She steels herself and walks in. Through the front door, takes Mum directly into a dining room in the middle of the house. Sitting at the other end and smoking heavily like a mafia boss is Ramsey, very obviously waiting for her. Ramsey says, "Mum, we need to talk." She said it as hard and as monotone as possible. I am nowhere to be seen, neither is anyone else. Where's my son? Sit down, he's upstairs, asleep. Don't disturb him. Mum remains standing up. She shouts for Dad and to bring me downstairs. No answer. Ramsey gets angry, a cold kind. She berates Mum for daring to wake her grandson while he sleeps. Before she can continue though, Mum launches back. She accuses Ramsey of manipulating her, of attacking her family, of trying to steal me. Mum tells Ramsey that she is taking me back, right now and permanently. Dad eventually scuttles downstairs, having to overcome his fear somewhat, and offers to bring me down. Ramsey's like, no, Mum, you're clearly in no state of mind to have me right now. I'll be taking me for a few days more, and you can have him back when you've calmed down and you've apologized to me. She then stood up as Mum began to protest. He's sleeping, Granddad's taking care of him, and I won't let you take him when you're so hysterical. Here we are, folks. I'm quite literally being held hostage at my own grandmother's behest. And so, thankfully, Mum loses all restraint and verbally wails on Ramsey. She attacks her as hard as possible, threatens lawsuits, the police, her family, and demands to her and Dad that someone bring me down immediately or she will march up and take me by force. Ramsey sits quietly until Dad calls for Granddad, who brings me down timidly. Mum marches out, Dad in tow, to her own house a few streets away. That wasn't the end to this war, but it might as well have been. Dad finally stopped playing middle ground and fully sided against Ramsey. Younger auntie followed suit. I wasn't going to Ramsey's at all anymore, and Granddad rightfully blamed her for it, along with the atrocities that she committed during Dad's childhood. They divorced a few years later. In those few years, Ramsey launched a full-on campaign of lawsuit threats, but Mum threatened them right back, and clearly had the stronger case. The divorce was the killing blow. She didn't get much. Not the house and not me. Her kids had all moved out by then, and after that they cut ties with her. The last we saw of her, she was shopping at a local Sainsbury's, a bit like a British Walmart. We don't know if she's still alive or not, but whatever the case, she's dead to us. Granddad is alive, well, and probably still a narcissist, but as I said, we haven't pressed it for a few reasons. 1, it isn't a serious danger at this point. 2, he's alive and in contact with the family. 3, Dad and his siblings needed someone in their childhood to latch onto as a parental figure, and with Granddad being the least awful, they latched onto him. They've started to see what he really is in recent years, but it's a taboo subject and we're content to, sorry if this is harsh, die with him when he passes. So there we have it. Mum has completely recovered, married and had another child. Dad also married to a woman with a daughter, so I have a stepsister now. Ramsey has basically faded to the wind, and I'm happy to let it stay that way. Wind can't hurt me any more than memories can. Entitled Mum tries to steal my face mask, gets kicked out of the store. Howdy howdy, let's get rowdy. So this happened yesterday, and I'm still kinda ticked about it. The stupidity of some people I come across at work could give anyone a migraine. Yesterday, I added yet another person to my list of idiot customers that I've seen at work. A bit of background information. I'm a cashier and stocker at a local grocery store in my town. Due to us being an essential establishment, we've been able to stay open. The problem is the store doesn't provide us employees with much to protect ourselves. The best they've been able to give us is disposable gloves, which I suppose is still better than nothing. Still, I live with my 60-year-old mum and don't want to bring home anything from work that might put her at risk. I voiced these concerns to a friend of mine who makes masks, and she happily made one for me. I've been wearing it to every one of my shifts and have received many comments from people asking me where I got it. Once I explained to them that a friend made it for me, they usually drop the subject. Until yesterday, that is. Here's the cast, me, entitled mum, and manager. So there I was, barbecue sauce, standing in my lane and watching the clock slowly tick by. I had already had some particular infuriating customers before Entitled Mother showed up, so I was more than ready for my shift to be over. I see Entitled Mother approaching from a distance and suspect nothing of her, for she doesn't hold the trademark appearance of a typically Karen. Oh, how naive I was. Entitled Mother pushes her cart through my lane and I plaster a forced smile on my face and switch into customer service mode. We make polite small conversation and she seems nice enough. But then, she asked me the fateful question that started this whole debacle. Not debacle, I know you guys were roasting me for that. Entitled Mother's like, so, where did you get your mask? Oh, a friend made it for me. Well, it's very pretty. Looks well made too. It is a pretty mask. A sky blue fabric decorated with red roses. My friend knows me well, smiley face. Yeah, my friend has made a lot of masks, so she's pretty good at it. Entitled mother then gestures to her daughter who is sitting in a cart playing on some kind of tablet. I wish I could find a mask for my daughter. I wouldn't want her catching anything. I'm sure you can find someone in your neighborhood who makes them, or you could try and make one yourself. They're pretty easy to make. And then entitled mother says this, I don't suppose you could just give me yours? I'm a bit taken aback by this question and move away from her a couple inches. I'm sorry ma'am, but I'm gonna have to say no. I need this mask for my job. Well, can't you just get your friend to make you another one? She's very backed up on orders from other people asking her to make masks for them. Besides, I've been wearing this mask all day. It's full of my germs. Oh, I can wash it when I get home. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to give you my mask. I need it to keep me and my family safe. Entitled mother has started sounding like your average Karen at this point, and it's also worth noting that she kept slowly inching towards me during this exchange. As we kept going back and forth with her, saying that her daughter absolutely needs it, and me saying that I need it because I'm an essential worker, she keeps getting louder and louder to the point where one of my managers noticed us and was watching the exchange. After another minute or so of going back and forth, entitled mother suddenly lunges forward and tried to grab at my mask. I was able to move my head back and away and avoid her, but her fingers almost grazed the fabric. It's probably like when Lord of the Rings and Bilbo Baggins goes like, "Ha! It's my precious." That was enough for the manager to step forward and put a stop to her antics. The manager's like, ma'am, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. But this woman just stole my daughter's mask. My daughter needs it. Ma'am, I was watching the whole exchange and I know that's not true. Leave now before I call the police, and never come back. At the mention of getting the cops involved, entitled mother realized that she could easily get arrested since we also have cameras over all of the check stands. She lifts her daughter out of the cart and leaves in a huff with no groceries and no mask. Thank God for my vigilant manager. And our next post is by user Bath Queen, titled, I need that toilet paper. So here's a quick one that happened to me at the beginning of quarantine, right when all the rushes on the supermarket started and the paper goods started vanishing. I got a phone call from my mother at like 7 AM telling me to switch on the news and that I should probably run to the store now. I look at my storage closet, one roll of TP left. Well, crap, but okay, I guess I have to go. So I get to the first store. They have the groceries I need but no TP. Go to the second store, nada. A third store, nada. Finally, I get on the highway and drive 30 minutes upstate. There on the shelves, under the red glow of the giant bullseye, are 4 27 packets of toilet paper. The only packs in the store, the only packs within miles. I've struck gold, folks. Curiously, there were several shoppers with carts. I only needed the one thing, so I didn't take a cart. Just sort of, I don't know, patrolling, if you will, as if they were in a slight orbit around these TP packages, with one eye looking out the front and the other trained on the shelf. I got the feeling that no one wanted to be the first to make the grab for the TP. Well, let me tell you, I grabbed one of those packs so fast, it was like lightning. Faster than a speeding bullet, deadlier than the strike of the mantis shrimp. Pow! I like to wipe my butt, folks. So now I've got my TP in hand. White knuckles like you wouldn't believe. And I go to make a hasty beeline for the checkout. Immediately, one of the orbital shoppers, an early middle-aged woman with a half-full cart, starts chasing me, all the while shouting, "Hey, I need those! I have children! I need those! Don't ignore me, you freak! You don't need those! I have children!" I don't know what it is with people like this, but they only seem to want things that other people have. You see, despite the fact that there were 3 unclaimed 27 packs of TP on the shelf, none of those other shoppers had made a move. This woman had to have mine. Because I guess the idea that a single man could be buying TP when her children needed it grounds her gears that much. I mean, how did she know I didn't have 13 good Christian children of my own back home? I don't, but the point still stands. Anyway, I'm still moving toward the register. It's all the way across the store. and she's still hooting and hollering at me with the "I have kids" and "stop ignoring me," while following about 10 feet behind and closing. Finally, I've had enough. I turn and loudly enough for half the store to hear, shout the first thing that popped into my head. "I have diarrhea." Well, let me tell you, she came to a wide-eyed screeching halt. Without a word, she turned around and went straight back from whence she came. I managed to get to the register without further incident. In fact, after my announcement, just about everybody was keeping their distance. I checked out, ran to my car, clutching that package like it was the Ark of the Covenant, and heading home to deal with my non-existent diarrhea. Imagine my shock when I got home to find my roommate proudly displaying the TP he had managed to find just 10 minutes from our apartment on his first try. I love it. I love it. And our next post is titled, "Entitled Mother Spits in My Face When I Won't Accept Her Counterfeit Money." I was going my usual thing, just working the electronics section at my job, helping customers as best I could, and doing my best not to get fired for being on my phone, when this mum and her daughter came up asking to get one of the few Nintendo Switches we had left, along with a copy of Animal Crossing. I pulled it out for them and brought them to the register, and the total came out to just under $400. The mother henceforth to be referred to as Entitled Mother hands me 4 $100 bills, and this is where the problem started. Recently, the store I work at had a massive issue with counterfeit bills, so now the new store policy is to run any bill over $20 through this machine that will test it and determine if it is legitimate or not. In the event that the machine determines them to be fake, we're ordered to call a manager down right away, and under no circumstances are we to give the money back. I already had some small red flags going off, since these bills felt way too much like regular paper. But when I started to run the bills through the machine, Entitled Mother started demanding to know what I was doing, which set off another red flag in my brain. I let her know what I was doing, and she got very defensive right away, telling me how the bills were real and how she had just picked them up from the bank. When I told them that it was the store policy, she got very irritated and told me to hurry up and looked really jumpy, just constantly looking around and swaying back and forth like she was on something. I ended up running all the bills at least 5 times each, and every time the machine said they failed whatever authenticity check it ran on them. At that point, I start following store policy and call the manager down, while trying to play it off like it's just a simple glitch that we needed fixed. I guess she got spooked by that, because she immediately demanded that I give her money back, saying how she'll go somewhere else. When I told her I couldn't, she went into full Karen meltdown mode, pulling out her phone to record me, demanding to tell her my full name, and worst of all, kept insinuating that I was treating her this way because she was a person of color. For whatever reason, the manager was taking forever to come down, and things were only getting worse, as Entitled Mother continued to make more of a scene, when out of nowhere, she tried reaching over the counter to grab the Switch. I managed to pull it out of her reach just in time, and got on the walkie-talkie to call the security, when all of a sudden she spits in my face, calls me an expletive, and then storms out of the store with her kid, who was screaming and crying. Maybe 5 minutes later, the manager comes down and I get to explain what happened. He ran the bills through the machine and got the same result of all of them failing, and maybe a half hour later was giving a statement to some rather disinterested looking cops. I called my boss after that, and she said I could go home a few hours early if I wanted to, which I took her up on. I got home, took a couple showers, and thought I'd share how my crappy day went. Sorry for any grammar or spelling mistakes, I'm still kinda ticked. Alright, and our next post is by Spoopy Bum Bun, titled, "Entitled Parent Tries to Convince Me That Celiac Disease Isn't Real." Entitled Parent in this story was one of my relatives, and this was a restaurant years ago, with Entitled Parent's spouse, and my mum. For context, I was diagnosed with celiac at 14. My doctors think it's been a lifelong issue for me, rather than something that spontaneously developed due to the sheer damage on my intestines. Anyway, here's how this goes. I say, I've never had Greek before. What's gluten-free? The saganaki is really good. Let's get that to start. Mum says, that has breadcrumbs in it. Let's ask if there's a separate gluten-free menu. Entitled Parent goes, it's just a few breadcrumbs, it's not that bad. Actually, it, cut off by entitled parent, they're so small and it's just a dusting. Yeah, but cut off again. Can't you just cheat a little? No, it, cut off again. The whole gluten-free fad is just a phase. No, it's a medical, cut off again. We're on a road trip, enjoy yourself. I have been, it's just that, God, kids and their trendy diets these days. My mum was at the side of the table talking to the waiter, who was very observant and empathetic. She explained that it's not a preference, that I have a legitimate medical condition. I think he saw how uncomfortable and upset I was getting with the entitled parent, because he didn't even charge us for the extra modified saganaki. And I looked it up, that's how you say the word. I'm not getting pulled up by you guys in the comments for this one. Mum and I slipped him a 50% tip at the end. And I say, it's not a trend. I bet all these food intolerances are just from over-processed garbage and hormones. It's liberal propaganda to make you buy special expensive food. I'd like to point out that it's really irritating when people see celiac as an intolerance. No, it's not like a lactose intolerance where I can take an enzyme capsule or just have an exploding craps and be fine in 2 days. Celiac is an autoimmune disorder and much more serious. Me, at this point, I'm just silent, because I know entitled parent isn't worth it. Entitled parent's spouse, who never ever speaks up, says, Jesus Christ, entitled parent, let the kid explain. They're the one with the gluten issue. I'm pretty sure this shocked entitled parent into silence. So I say, it's not a trend or a fad diet. I was told by my doctors that I needed to be on a gluten-free diet because I have celiac disease. We know this because my antibody levels were off the charts before going gluten-free, and now that I have been off of gluten, they've returned to normal. Celiac is not an intolerance, it is an autoimmune disorder. When I have gluten, my immune system attacks my intestines. This causes a body-wide rash, excruciating abdominal pain, diarrhea, sometimes vomiting, and severe fatigue. But it's small breadcrumbs. The gluten proteins that cause these reactions are microscopic. Size doesn't matter. Well, why can't you just do half gluten-free, like full gluten off the weekends? My mum, who is done ordering now, says, okay, entitled parent, if that's what you want to do, I'm sure you'd be thrilled to pay for your grandchild to have a colostomy bag by age 30. Because that's what staying on gluten will do. She'd also need a feeding tube due to severe nutrient deficiencies, which OP already has because the damage is that bad. Now, when can we add OP to your insurance plan? Entitled parent went totally silent. Entitled parent's spouse was laughing so hard, he had to step outside. Eventually, our food came and the rest of the trip went smoothly. Ironically, 3 years later, I had to have an emergency exploratory surgery of my abdomen. I was in the ER because the pain was so bad, we thought it might have been my appendix, which there is a family history of, but the ultrasounds couldn't see crap. It turns out I have about 6 inches of scar tissue in my abdomen, which is likely the result of the celiac damage. In some parts, it actually wraps around my colon and small intestines, so when there's any inflammation, the scar tissue constricts them. Ow. Ow, ow, ow. And our next post is by Mizerloo95, titled, Entitled Mother Harasses Me, a Disabled Child at Disney World. So, my I Don't Work Here lady story blew up the other day, so I figured I'd share another classic entitled story over here too. Enjoy! Now my backstory is, my parents took me, male, 10 at the time, to Disney World for my 10th birthday, in 2013. I'm also autistic and it's noticeable. It was especially obvious when I was younger, even more so because I was incredibly excited to be at Disney. Now, when you're at Disney parks around your birthday, they give you this big old button that says, "It's my birthday," along with a space where the cast member writes your name. I was very proud of my button and proudly wore it over my whole trip. On this particular day of my actual birthday, my parents and I were in the Magic Kingdom. We were around Tomorrowland and just about to enter the Buzz Lightyear Astro Blasters. I was carrying a Stitch plush that I had gotten from the first day of the trip. And these 2 kids around my age at the time, a boy and girl, NK1 and 2, which stands for nice kid because they were nice, with their mum, entitled mother, noticed my plush. They got their mother's attention saying, "Mommy, Mommy, look, he has a Stitch." Their mother smiled at them and at me, and then she noticed my button and said, "Happy birthday, young man." Nice Kid 1 and Nice Kid 2 also saw it, and also happily told me happy birthday. I was excited that they noticed, and I grinned and thanked them as I happily flapped my hands around a bit, something I do when I'm excited. Nice Kid 1 and 2 didn't think anything of it, but Entitled Mother's face scrunched up as if I had just dropped the F-bomb. "What's the matter with you?" Entitled Mother asked rudely. I didn't hear her, but my parents did. My dad asked her what she'd just said. "Well, I don't want him doing that around my children." Entitled Mother said that, disgusted. "He did nothing wrong," my dad said. "I do not want my children catching that and acting like him," Entitled Mother spat. Me and Nice Kid 1 and Nice Kid 2 were not paying attention to this at all. We were too busy happily discussing Stitch. I was having an awesome time talking with my 2 new friends when Entitled Mother grabbed their hands and rushed them into the queue for Buzz Lightyear before we could get there. "We deserve to go first after what your child just did," Entitled Mother smugly stated. "However, when you're autistic at Disney, you get a special pass to skip queues." Winky face. So of course, we walk right on past Entitled Mother towards the fast pass queue attendant who directs us on what to do. She's throwing a fit about us cutting the line as my dad presents the pass to the attendant, and Entitled Mother totally shuts up about seeing the actual pass. This was before it was all digital. Talk about justice. The funny part is that if she'd bothered to look at the other pins on my backpack, she'd have known from the get-go that I was autistic, as I have a couple buttons there in case I got separated from my parents. Also, at the time, I thought Entitled Mother was just mad that we skipped in line. I had no idea she was all ableist beforehand. Again, me and Nice Kid 1 and 2 were having a nice happy little kid conversation, so this didn't ruin my day at all. Side note, a lot of park guests and cast members saw my button, and I flapped my hands every time. Sure, I got a few raised eyebrows, but nobody said anything, especially not as blatantly rude as Entitled Mother. Even the characters went out of their way to show their excitement. That was an awesome trip. I hope Nice Kid 1 and 2 are doing well. And I still sleep with that Stitch plush every night. Teary-eyed smiley face. Alright, now our next post is by CGYT Gaming, titled, Entitled Mother Gets Exposed by Her Own Children. Entitled Mother gets exposed by her own kids at a restaurant. I work at a small diner in New Jersey. It's not really much of a hassle because I make a living off of it and most customers are nice and gave generous tips. I've been working there for 5 months and no real incident has happened until recently. We were about to close at around 9:30 when the Entitled Mother came in with her about 6-year-old children. She walks up to me, I'm the host of the place, and begins the conversation. She says, "Can I get some food for my children? We're about to close, but I'll see if we have anything left. I would like the exparado, a dish consisting of different meat cuts, our item we're known for. Takes about 1 to 1.5 hours to prepare. I'm sorry, but we're about to close, and you have to call ahead for that dish. The best I can get you is some spaghetti." Come on, this restaurant should always serve their dishes no matter when it is. I demand the exparado, and for all the hassle I got, I want it at no cost. Look ma'am, the exparado is very difficult to prepare and make. We can't serve it for you. But my kids are starving. Mum, I thought this was your dinner. The Entitled Mother blushes and immediately leaves. I love that kid for calling the Entitled Mother out. I gave him a lollipop for what he did. Rightio, our next post is by user Sub to Dead Meat, titled Holiday Special. Crazy religious aunt throws a tantrum over a man who was eating in a public during Ramadan. Hey guys, I was thinking that I should post this during Ramadan as a form of vengeance against entitled Muslim aunt, which explains the reason for posting this story during Ramadan. So here goes nothing. Disclaimer, not all Muslims are like entitled auntie. Disclaimer, sorry for some translation errors, I had to translate the story from Arabic to English, since that's the language my cousin told it to me in. Introducing the cast. Entitled aunt, cool cousin, Christian man, nice uncle, who I mentioned in one of the previous stories, rest in peace. Yeah, rest in peace, nice uncle, he's a good man. Nice uncle, cool cousin, and entitled auntie were going to a beach in Australia to have some fun before they had a feast after sunset. Entitled auntie was just minding her own business until she saw a man eating. Wow, truly shocking. And now we kick off the entitled auntie encounter. She says, "Hi sir." Cool man's like, "Huh?" Cool cousin jumps in. "Hey mom, what's going on? This man is sinning." "Wait, what did I do?" "Don't make yourself look innocent. You know what you did." "What did I do?" "You're eating during Ramadan." "And why is that wrong?" "What are you, an idiot? It is wrong because you aren't supposed to eat during Ramadan." "But ma'am, I'm a Christian." "How dare you?" "How dare you what?" "How dare you not be a Muslim?" "Please just leave him be. You are going to hell, you hear me? You're going to hell, you peant." "Listen, leave me alone or I'll call the cops." "How dare you reject my message of peace? I'm trying to say—" "No, ma'am, you're literally trying to convert me like an—" "Okay, buddy. Now leave me alone before I call the cops." "How dare!" Nice uncle rescues the Christian man at the time and says, "Let's leave entitled auntie. Now." Entitled auntie, like a 5-year-old, is like, "No! Now!" When they are leaving, nice uncle apologizes sincerely, and the cool man is cool about it. Important update. Entitled auntie will be having a negotiation session with me and cool cousin later about the stories, and since she wanted peace, I believe that the end of the saga is near. Edit, just to clarify one thing. If there's anything you don't understand about the story, or simply think that it's just not real, just write it down and I'll be glad to answer. Now on that same topic, we've got Terrific Toff Fan says, "My entitled aunt found my post." I'm gonna try and keep this clean for Yugo's owner, plus I am doing this on mobile, so I'm sorry for errors. Yesterday I made a post of my entitled aunt not letting my cousin go to my 9-year-old laser tag party because her daughter couldn't come, and I made the mistake of not putting it on a throwaway account. So my entitled cousin found it, and this happened. Yesterday I Skyped my nice older cousin, and nice cousin, and then entitled auntie came on and saw me and yelled, "There's the snitch." And me, nice older cousin, and nice cousin went silent, and when I didn't say anything, my entitled auntie said, "You made entitled cousin so sad, as you made my look like I was the villain when you ruined my daughter's special day." Yes, she did say her daughter's special day. Nice older cousin cut her off and said, "Mum, just shut up. Me and nice cousin aren't allowed to do anything if entitled cousin doesn't like it. So will you just shut up and let me and nice cousin talk to your cousin?" It looked like entitled auntie was gonna kill nice older cousin, and said, "But entitled cousin wants to talk to her friend." Nice older cousin got so mad. "Look, entitled auntie, I'm sorry for putting you on Reddit, but you need to understand that you're kind of a jerk. It literally looked like steam was coming out of your ears, and she screeched, 'What? You entitled jerk, do you know what you have done?' Entitled cousin is crying because you made us look like the bad guy. Nice older cousin just said, 'You can leave, OP, you don't have to deal with this,' and ended the call. I feel so bad. Edit for clarification, entitled cousin found the post. I'm not using a throwaway because my cousin scared entitled cousin into not telling entitled auntie anymore. Entitled auntie has the mean but nice helicopter parent personality, so she's alright when it doesn't come to her or her twins, but mostly entitled cousin. I hope you guys were able to make sense of that post because my brain is rattling around in my head right now. Anyway, our next post is by Minimum, titled "Me, a Gay Friend, Homophobic Entitled Mother, and a Plot Twist." Hello dear Redditors. This probably won't get any views, but screw it, I wanted to share it. Cast of characters of the crap show that is life. Lesbian friend, entitled mother, a 40-year-old grunt, and OP, original poster. Just kidding, you know who it is. So basically, I'll keep it brief. I am 13, bisexual male. I have yet to confess to my mum and brother, but I have time. A month ago, before corona crap and isolation, emotional devastation, I was catching up with a girl I used to date in the 5th grade. Consider date as a term as loose as spaghetti since we were in the 5th grade after all. We were in a park on a weird kind of construct, which was basically an elevated plateau, lying down. We got chatting and she said to me how she already confessed to her family and considered me a close friend. I was her first boyfriend and ex after all. She confessed how we broke up because she was in a phase of denying she was lesbian, and to prove it to herself, she wasn't. Basically, the fact we broke up is because she realized she was gay, and she couldn't date a boy if she was. I said it was okay, and that I was really happy for her. We got chatting about the LGBTQ+ community and how we realized we were a part of it. Then came the frickin' "May I speak to your manager?" haircut having, tear-inducing, 4 kids having entitled grunt of a Karen. She had her daughter in tow. She looked about 15, kinda hot. Jesus. I'm sorry, why are you speaking of sinners? We're talking about gay people. Wouldn't call them sinners. They are gay. They have sinned and should burn in hell. You aren't one of them, are you, sweetie? Don't call her sweetie, bear. Besides, how dare you call gay people sinners? Got your dreams crushed because your man crush Monday turned out to like the D instead of BOOB? I get really pissy when someone is homophobic. I can't stand anti-gay asshats. Basically, Karen went freaking berserk. Jesus Christ, you should have seen it. I'll admit I was keeping a poker face, but inside I was laughing my ass off thinking, how can someone be this level of gay intolerance? After a few minutes, she said some crap about how we were poisoning her child and crap like that. Lesbian friend was texting someone who I didn't know, but when the entitled mother's daughter's phone rang, it clicked. Lesbian friend got herself a girlfriend a few months ago. It was the entitled mother's daughter. Lesbian friend whispered to me, "When you see my signal, just walk away with us." Let me tell ya, I had a grin the size of East Texas. What ensued next was a power move leveled 10 million. Entitled mother's daughter walked away from entitled mother to hug and kiss lesbian friend on the mouth. Entitled mother's daughter said to her mum, "By the way, mum, I'm gay. See you at dinner." We walked away, talking about the situation, while entitled mother stood there, jaw on the floor, and everyone walked the dinosaur. It's good to be bi, but even better to have gay friends who stand up for the LGBTQ+ community. Don't know who will see this? Probably no one, but if you do, thanks for reading. Crackhead gets offended when I won't give her details about my reproductive system. I live in a small apartment building with my wife and 2 kids. There are 4 units together in a row, and it isn't a great neighborhood. This is sort of a temporary situation until we're back on our feet, but a lot of the other people who live here are older, and we'll just say unambitious towards life. Normally, I'd try to keep myself to myself, but we're in the middle unit, and sometimes being neighborly is a hazard. When the kids want to play outside, I sit and crochet or read in my chair outside the door. This leaves me vulnerable to chit-chat. So the lady next door, I crap you not, introduced herself to me as Wanda, your crazy crackhead neighbor. I don't know if this is a well-known rumor she's heard about herself, or if she's actually warning me or what, but we are already not off to a good start. As politely as I can, we make small talk, and she asks that question that everyone asks the gay couple. So, who's the mum? We both are. No, I mean like, who's the real mum? That irked me a bit, so a little more sternly I repeat, we both are. She gave me a snide look and changed tactics. Who's the dad? They don't have one. This is true both spiritually and legally. There was no intercourse, so there is no legally intended father. So how'd you get the sperm? Now I could tell she was getting angry, but I really don't think she had the right to keep asking these kinds of personal questions. I stared at her for a long minute, mulling over which direction to take this. I wished real hard and I clicked my heels. At that point, I was done with the conversation and ushered the kids inside. Just to be clear, you are not entitled to ask someone personal questions about their choice of reproduction just because it isn't obvious to you. Edited for a bit of backstory. Our next post is by user FredZRed, titled, "Entitled Neighbor Expects My Gardener to Clean Her Garden for Free." This happened recently. I live in a unit complex of about 20 units, where most of the neighbors know each other or have spoken at one point or another. One of the neighbors, Ben, has a lawnmower and mows everyone's lawns for free. Important for later. I've been in isolation because of COVID-19 for the past month, and have been getting extra money from the government lately that I don't need. So I decided to put that money to a good use and hire a gardener to fix up my front and back garden. The front garden is a complete mess. For the past 2 weeks, he's been coming and going to fix up my front garden in small increments, not interacting with me directly for obvious reasons. This happened yesterday when my gardener was working on my front garden. One of my neighbors, Jessica, came up to the gardener — I have security cameras outside so I can see what is going on in the driveway — and began complimenting him on his great work. I popped my head out so I could hear what was being said, but they couldn't see me. She's like, "Yeah, that looks really good. I think you're doing a really nice job." She started getting overly complimentary, and I had a sneaking suspicion of what she was getting at. Jessica, not knowing that I was around the corner and could hear everything, "You're doing such a good job here. Do you think you could, work on my garden after you're done here? I don't think OP would mind." Me, coming around the corner, "Hi Jessica, what's up?" Jessica, realizing she was busted, Oh, hi OP. Well, I was saying that what a good job your gardener has done so far. Do you think he'd mind doing my garden as well?" I'm sure he wouldn't mind. It's $30 for an hour or $300 for the whole day. What? I'm not paying for it. You hired a gardener, so it's your responsibility to do my garden as well. I hired a gardener to do my garden. It's not up to me to pay for your garden to be done as well. But Ben mows the lawn for free. Your gardener should do my backyard for free too. Sorry, Jessica, but if you want a private gardener, you will have to pay for it like everyone else. But I'm on disability pension and I can't afford that. Clearly you can. I'm on a disability pension too, so don't try that. I spend my money on important things, not the alcohol I see you buying all the time. So unless you're going to pay for his time, please let him get back to work. Jessica huffed and stomped off, and I haven't heard a peep from her since. But give it time. I'm sure she'll be back soon enough to get more things for free. Alright, and our next post is by user WarLady22, titled, "What the hell is wrong with these people?" So I'm outside, in my car, far too grossed out to go back into my job. I will have to, of course, but ugh. I heard someone having a huge coughing fit a while ago, and followed the sound to a guy with his head in our freezer. He was hacking up along inside our freezer, all over the food in there, and it wasn't clean coughing either. Then he pulled out and spat up mucus onto the floor. He then wiped his hand over his face and started touching stuff with that hand. He was coughing and hacking all over the store. Everything has to be wiped down or even thrown out now. Myself and a few others tracked what the guy did and touch, and we had to throw out items because no way in hell we were going to attempt to clean them to sell them. Yeah, the manager hates that we chose to do that, but at least he understands. Now my stomach is churning, but I have to go back in. Screw the idiot morons, I swear. Edit, yes, the man was kicked up. Yes, he is temporarily banned from the store. Yes, we used all manner of protection while cleaning. Our next post is by user EmpatheticReader92, titled, "Don't park in my driveway." So, when we first moved to Texas, our house was behind a pasture, and as the years went on, the pastures became schools. Every weekend, there was some kind of event or sport, something going on at one of the two schools, and there was never enough parking. So of course, people parked in our neighborhood, and this is the story of Mr. Red Pickup, MRP. Well, MRP loves to park in our driveway. I don't know why, maybe he liked the white brick of the house, or that it was near the corner. I don't know, but he loved to park in our driveway every weekend, and I don't mean politely. I mean, he would park in the dead center, like those jerks who park over the line. Well, my parents would leave notes on his car for a few weeks, till one week we found a letter taped to our door. "Hi, this is MRP. Please stop leaving these notes on my truck, or I will have to phone the police for harassment. My kid has his sporting events and there's never parking. It's not hurting you to let me park here, so just leave me alone." Well, you can imagine how fast my parents called the cops. And once they explained and showed the time-stamped pictures of every time he'd parked there, he was towed. And as an added dose of sweet karma, the tow truck pulled off with his car just as he was rounding the corner to my house. He got to watch his car roll away. Karma was issued as well as the trespassing and harassment tickets. He turned up as red as his truck. At least his kid won his race. And our next post is by Dion of the Wilds, titled, "My husband's father went public about my pregnancy without consulting my husband or me." About 2 weeks ago, my husband and I found out we were expecting our first child. As a bit of background, we had been trying for 2 years and were understandably excited to tell our immediate family. Because we found out early, I was 6 weeks at the time, we asked our family to please wait until we posted to post it on Facebook. Fast forward to this morning. My brother-in-law shared a screenshot of a status my husband's father posted saying he gave us a week and they need to understand that grandmas and grandpas can't wait that long. So he took it upon himself to post it in a public Facebook post. He even tagged my husband in it, so a number of my extended family and friends saw it, as well as a couple of my coworkers. I assume some privately messaged him about how uncool it was because he deleted it, but the damage has been done. My husband and I are now devastated because we had a super cute announcement planned for a month from now. Update: husband is on the phone with his parents and they are trying to justify it by saying, well, you should have gone public when you had the chance, and he deleted it, so you shouldn't be upset. Update 2: husband received an apology from his dad, but it also came with a message stating that he should call his mum because she fell and hurt herself right before he called to confront them. What's wrong with this guy? That's no reason. Silly old people and their excuses. Our next post is by user KH8188, titled, Stop Touching People. My sister is deaf and works in a store stocking shelves and is an essentials worker. The number of entitled people who have touched her to get her attention in the past month is atrocious. One guy actually shook her shoulder to ask her a question, and since he was wearing a mask, she couldn't understand him, or respond if he didn't know ASL. He scared the crap out of her and then got annoyed with the fact that she couldn't communicate with him. If you are trying to get someone's attention and they don't respond to your verbal cues or a wave, walk away and find someone else. Don't touch other people. Really, at any time. But especially during a pandemic with a mandate to stay 6 feet away from other people. Edits: I walked away from Reddit for the day and obviously didn't get a chance to respond. Thank you to all of the deaf and hard of hearing people who responded to the comments and questions, as you are the appropriate people to answer these questions and provide suggestions. Edit number 2: I personally think it's very entitled to touch a stranger. I also think it's entitled to assume that because someone is stocking shelves, it's their job to help you. Their job is to stock shelves. Maybe in a tiny family-owned business, the family workers are jacks of all trades. But most places have different descriptions for different jobs. The bakery person doesn't stock cat food. The deli counter person doesn't ring you up at the register. And the stock people are not there for customer service. So many people stocking grocery shelves don't even work there. They work for independent vendors and don't know the layout of the store anyway. If someone offers you help, that's one thing, but if you have a question, the proper place to ask is at the customer service desk, or if no one else is there, possibly a cashier, only because they're paid to have contact with you and generally know the layout of the store. Sorry some people don't find this as outrageously entitled as some of the stories on this sub, but to me, this is oblivious entitlement at its finest. Expecting someone to be available for you to service when it's clearly not their job to speak to you. Edit number 3. If it wasn't clear, my sister lives in New York State, and this happened during COVID-19. I posted my opinions about tapping people, but obviously when we are mandated to stay 6 feet away from others, you should definitely not be tapping strangers on the shoulder for any reason, let alone shaking them. Our next post is by user FTX777, titled, It's Your Body, You Can Just Change Your Sexuality. Okay, so a little bit of information before we start. I am a 15-year-old female and I'm asexual, meaning that I'm not sexually attracted to any gender and feel no desire to have sex now or in the future. The guy that I will be speaking about, let's call him Entitled Guy, is a mutual friend of my brother's. Personally, we have only spoken once or twice, and I don't really know the guy, but about a month ago he added me on Snapchat and we started talking. This is how the texting conversation went. Hey cutie, hi, can you send me a selfie? I want to see you. I then proceed to send e.g. a photo of my face. You've gotten cuter since I last saw you. I did? That's not true, XD. Too bad you won't let me smash. I don't think I feel very comfortable with that statement, plus I do have a boyfriend. What if you were single? Still would be no. Damn, you're mean, you know, XD. How am I mean? Why won't you let me smash? Firstly, I have a boyfriend, and secondly, I'm asexual. How are you asexual? How am I supposed to know? It's my sexuality. I can't control it. It's your body. You can just change it. Come over here and I'll make you... Oh god. Oh god, I hope you're joking. Edit. I have posted the conversation on my profile. I didn't expect this to blow up. Edit 2. So today I finally confronted EG and told him to stop messaging me. And that he was borderline harassing me, and it was revealed that we indeed have an r/nice guy on our hands. Thanks you all for sticking with me to the end, and if you're interested in knowing what this r/nice guy said, then head over to the subreddit or check on my profile. Our next post today is by user AngelE2015, titled, Entitled guests sit themselves down after waiting 20 minutes of a 1 hour 45 minute wait. This is a longer post, I apologize. Guests sit themselves down when they only waited 20 minutes of their 1 hour 45 minute wait on New Year's Eve. So this was last year's New Year's Eve, and my restaurant takes reservations. We seat them first, and we always make sure to try and accommodate walk-ins. I was a seater that night, and a double that day. As soon as 3:30 hit, we were already going on a 30-minute wait, and once it was 6 PM, we were slammed. We always tell our guests that we will call out their name. We used first and last name and never used pages. Guests would drop them in the fountain. Oh, what's wrong with people? So on this beautiful night, I'm running around seating guests and helping clean tables. Our bar seats are all first come, first serve. Our waiting area out front is packed. I get handed my next card name to walk. It's just a piece of folded paper with the name and party number. We set it on the tables so servers know who is new and who hasn't been greeted yet. So I go and start checking outside. Then I go to the very crowded, very loud bar. It's around 8 now, and crap is crazy. I'm screaming out the name, and to be honest, I don't even remember what it was at this point. Then this guy at the bar turns around one way and said, "Oh, party for blah blah." I said, "Yes, your table is ready." He's like, "Oh, we will pay out." Then the woman next to him turns around the opposite way, so their backs are to each other. They're next to each other too. She's like, "Oh, amazing, we will pay out right now." So I'm like, okay, bet, that was easy. I go back to the front desk, and the guy comes to me and says his friends are cashing up the bill, and he would like to be sat. No biggie, I double verify the name there and walk him to be sat. And it's a large party booth for 5 to 6 people. I get my next name card, and then the woman comes up to me, and she said I called the name. I smiled and said, "Your other party member just sat down. Just walk straight, and at the very back is a large party booth." And I continued to walk my current party guests. Well, they're not the same party. So the lady comes up to me and says someone is in their booth. I quickly respond with the name of the guy's party, and she said, "No, you called out Jill." I only remember her name at this point in my life. So I'm standing there, and I know sure as all get out, I never said that name. I look at her, and I repeat the name of the guy's party, and I said, "Sorry ma'am, I called out for the party of Juan. Let's call it, or Joan. It could be Joan, not Juan." When I say this woman went apecrap on me. She went nuts. She immediately goes, "Why are you arguing with me?" I'm sorry, I'm not arguing. She puts her hand on my fucking face and said, "Well then, seat us now." I grab our system and ask for her name, which I find out is Jill at that point. Her name is still on the wait list. I even check when she came in. She was waiting 20 minutes. She had 1 hour and 25 minutes left. I looked at her and straight up said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry for any confusion, but there is no possible way I could have even said your name. You were only just put down on the list." Her husband and her immediately rail on me. "Well, we just gave up our bar seats, so you have to get them back for us." Me and my head hostess. She's hearing everything as she deals with incoming guests, joins in the conversation and says, "We're sorry for the confusion, but that is first come, first serve. We have no authority when it comes to the bar. We thank you for your patience." I think, okay, that's good. Nope. She continued to scream and cuss about wanting a seat, then walk off into the lobby and I get the next card name. When I start to walk them, who goes and seats themselves? My managers were told what was going on, and we radio over headsets what happened, and I was told to get them up. I go over, and before I even talk, her husband puts his motherfrickin' hand in my face as well, and my managers are seeing everything at this point. He immediately starts cussing me off, telling me they're not fudging moving. He knows our general manager, and they can sit if they want. I lean down and I tell them they need to get up. They have waited only 25 minutes, while I've had guests wait for 2 hours, and they were sure as hell not more important than my guests currently waiting on their rightful booth. That no, I would not get our general manager, because he wasn't there, and if he cusses in my face one more time, I'll make sure they don't eat there tonight. I'm good friends with the assistant manager. She comes over with menus, and when I say slammed them down, I mean the booths all near us got very quiet. She tells them, here are your menus, since you feel so much more important than the other guests. The server will be with you later, as we are very busy, and if you ever cuss at my hostess again, I will make sure you never can come back and eat in here again, and you can make damn sure Jacob will hear how you cussed her out for no reason. We walked away at that point. I have to say, her response made me so happy, and because of their BS, I got to leave even earlier that night with a free meal. I wish they could have been kicked out, but they were friends of our general managers. The next time I saw him, he apologized for their behavior and said they won't be coming in anytime soon. This will always be my favorite hostess story I have. So far, no one has beaten it just yet, but some have gotten close. And our next post is by user DecuDaddy45, nice, titled, Entitled neighbor tries to have a tree older than her house cut down illegally. Tree law! Tree law! This has happened a couple years back, but I'm just now getting into Reddit, so let's go. Also, sounds like tree law. My family has lived in the same house for about 24 years now. My entire life we've had the same neighbors in both sides of us. On one side is the sweetest elderly lady who bakes us fudge every Christmas to thank us for any help we give her throughout the year. On the other side is a family whose parents seem to think the world revolves around their own jerks. Their own assholes, hahaha. Now, this family moved in about 2 or 3 years before us, giving them the idea that their opinion trumps the lives of any of their neighbors. I know this because both the parents and the children, who are the same age as myself, have explicitly told me this. There is a giant tree in my parents' backyard that admittedly had become a bit overgrown. A branch or two have reached over the fence leading into our neighbor's yard. In the fall, the tree sheds its leaves, as trees do, and maybe 1% of the leaves will make their way into the neighbor's yard. This tree has been a part of my childhood, and all 3 of my siblings' childhoods. Needless to say, my family is quite attached to our tree. Well, about 15 years ago, our neighbors decided to build a pool. We've had issues with them over time, so when they started to gripe about the leaves from the tree falling into their pool, we just brushed it off. Fast forward about 2 years ago. I had finished up for the college semester and came back to visit my parents for the week. I was at home relaxing and enjoying my time off when my dog started barking, so I went to check it out. While looking out the window, I saw a team of tree trimmers begin to unload and set up in the backyard. It wouldn't be the first time my parents didn't mention having work done on the house, so I didn't think anything of it. I called my old man to see if the trimmers would need anything from me while they were here, but he was working, so I just left a message. He got back to me about 30 minutes later, completely confused, so I knew something wasn't right. At that point, I went out back and told them to take a break, because there has been a mistake. Luckily, they had only managed to take 2 or 3 of the major branches off the tree, so there was still a chance the tree would survive. It was the quickest I've ever seen my dad do the drive home. I went out back with him so that I could figure out what was up. After a very loud discussion and a lawsuit threat later, the trimmers decided it was best they didn't finish up the job of taking down all of the branches. Well, it turns out that our entitled neighbor decided to take it upon herself to hire a company to come and take the tree down in our yard. When she told the company that it was in her neighbor's yard, they only asked if she got it cleared with us. They didn't make any effort to make sure it was cool. To make the situation even sweeter, the crew working on the tree wouldn't stop the job until the owner of the company came on site and cleared up the situation. I don't know about you guys, but if I found out what I was doing was unauthorized work and trespassing on someone's property, I'd take it as my cue to leave. When my parents demanded an explanation, the only thing our neighbor would say was that since the couple branches were reaching over the fence, she had the right to get the tree taken down. That's when the police got involved. She was informed that she was allowed to have the branches trimmed past the fence, something my parents said they could have done if the neighbor paid for it, but due to the significant branches trimmed off the property, she would be looking at destruction of property if the tree died. Luckily, the tree stands to this day, and the wind seems to blow just a bit harder towards their yard each fall. And our last post for the day is by Alkaline Photos Fathays, titled, "Send me pics." No? Okay, you screwed up. First time posting and on mobile. Sorry for any formatting issues. I met this dude on Hinge tonight, and I am always terrible at checking the app. So when someone I match with asks for my number, I'll usually give it. International dude adds me on WhatsApp. We get to talking on the phone pretty immediately. He's a rich finance dude and is super into dropping his status, but he's also funny and charming, so I let that slide for now. A little later, we're both not fully sober at this point, and the conversation turns a bit hot and heavy. I'm not super invested, but go along to start to get invested. Until he asks me to switch to video or send him nudes. I don't send nudes, and I won't show my body to someone over video that I've never met. Those are my rules. He gets mad, keeps pushing, I say no multiple times, and eventually just give up and say, "Dude, stop." He gets angry, says I've turned him on and won't deliver, and hangs up. An hour later, I get a text that he was having so much fun with me, but I screwed it up, Lamau. I don't even owe you crap, dude. You can throw your money in my face, but I'm not going to take off my clothes for you if I don't want to. Entitled woman doesn't like me bagging her groceries like she asked, and then tries to tell lies about me. Yay, I finally have a story to tell here. So I recently began working in my local supermarket since COVID-19 has temporarily put me out of my job. Today was my third day, and I only recently began learning the process of bagging groceries at the end of the checkout line. So, entitled parent approaches the register and tells the cashier and I that she would like us to place the cold items in the same bag. Half of her bag was cold items. We were like, okay. And so I began carefully trying to see what the best way to carefully pack her bag was while overstuffing as little as possible. After watching me work with it for about 30 seconds, she says it is okay and asks me to hand the bag over. She then looks me dead in the eyes and tells me that was the worst bagging work she had ever seen. After making eye contact with the two other employees who were witnessing this, I apologized to her and asked what she would like. She said it didn't matter and asked me to just start putting her stuff in bags and that she would fix it later. So I finished packing her groceries in her cart and told her to have a nice day, so which she said, "Yep," and she leaves. My coworkers and I all acknowledge what just happened, and we think it is over. No such luck. Apparently, when she got to her car, she discovered that I had placed a bag of bread and a sealed onion in the same bag, when I was putting all of the items in her bag for her to fix later, like she asked. Now, I learned after the fact why this might bother some people, but keep in mind I literally just started my first ever grocery job and have no concept of many specific things like this that may annoy customers yet, and it certainly did not merit the way she reacted. I had no idea that any of the following was happening until after it was over. This lady came back into the store from her car and pulled aside one of the bakery managers, who have nothing to do with the checkout line, and ranted to him about it. He acknowledged her complaint and apologized. She then left for her car, but then it turned around and came back in to find a different manager. This time she found one of the shifts and repeated her complaints. I hadn't yet actually met this manager, but when she pointed me out, he explained that I was a new hire, to which she said that was not an excuse. Now, I still don't know for sure what she said about me, but her story apparently contained many embellishments, because the other employees who saw what happened felt the need to approach the manager and set the record straight. He had acknowledged her complaint and told her that he would talk to me. So he then approached me and told me that she had not been reacting appropriately and that she had turned something that needed a minor correction into a massive fiasco. He then introduced himself and that's how we met. Turns out he's pretty cool and we share a lot of interests. And our next post is by user Faded Platinum, titled, "Fiance's ex-wife demands stimulus money that hasn't arrived yet and is not legally entitled to receive." Some background. My fiance claims his son on his taxes as allowed by their divorce settlement, meaning child tax credits are his. He is caught up on child support and voluntarily gave her some of his tax return this year because they needed a new fridge. My future mother-in-law also provides her with financial and material support because she doesn't want her grandson to go without things that he may need. The ex-wife doesn't work and her husband gets disability. Yesterday, while at work, my fiancé received a text message from his ex-wife. Here is how it went. Entitled X, EE from here says, "Watch for our son's 500 stimulus because people are starting to get it this week." My fiancé says, "If your husband gets a stimulus, half of that 500 is mine." Note he meant half the child credit. He was going to be nice and give her some of the money. That 500 is our son's. I'm not spending it on myself. I'm spending it on son. We have a dryer we have to buy. We have crap we need to buy. You have your own money. That is son's money. You get your 1200 stimulus. The child gets her stimulus too. You don't need son's money too. Second text from EE, "And I have a car I have to fix. I don't even have a car right now. It broke down." Fiancé and I discussed pooling a portion of each of our 1200 payments towards household needs and using the 500 on things for his son, such as an air filter for the house because kiddo's allergies are getting worse and it's not something we can easily afford, and giving her a portion of the money. It angers me that she's demanding money she has no legal right to instead of asking. I am not married to him yet, so I don't really have a say, but I'm hoping he won't give her a dime now. Alright, and our next post is by Mary Shelley 1, titled, "Coworker says the way I dress makes her self-conscious." I am an essential worker. I work in a factory and I wear a uniform, but I still come in dressed how I normally dress. I love to wear skirts and decorative tights under my ripped jeans, bodysuits, crop tops, etc. I'm pretty slim and petite. So one of my coworkers is the same age as me, female 20, and she's a bit on the curvier side. She always comes in sweatpants and baggy sweaters. I've seen her outside of work before, and she does put effort into her appearance when she wants to. One day, we were changing back into our normal clothes, when I caught her staring at me. I asked her if everything was okay, and she just shrugged and walked out without saying anything. So I ordered this cute yellow plaid skirt, and since the quarantine, I haven't been able to wear it, so I decided to wear it to work. Walking in, I saw my coworker sitting in the break room talking to some other people. I go over to the table I usually sit and start chatting with some coworkers while I put my stuff in its place. One of the guys is this man in his 40s with a daughter close to my age. He said he liked my skirt and might get one for his kid. This caught her attention and she asked why he would allow his daughter to dress like a tramp. This made people stop and stare at her. When she realized what she said, she just got up and walked out of the break room into the locker room. Upset, I followed her in and just saw her changing into her uniform. I asked her why she would say something like that, and all she said is, "I have no reason to explain myself to you." I told her, "Considering you were talking about me, I think you do." She huffed and said I'm obviously trying to get people to look at me and expect that every girl has to dress like this, that I was begging for attention, and how I made her self-conscious. First off, I don't dress for other people, I dress for myself. I basically flipped it on her by saying, well, I don't like the way you dress, because you're making people think that girls shouldn't take pride in the way they look. She says, I don't give a crap about what people think about me. Which I reply with, then why do you care so much about how I dress? Her response is, because no normal person dresses like that, you look stupid and people think you're a freak. She leaves the locker room all smug, as if she just won this fight. But because of her little outburst in the break room, people start giving her the side eye. She noticed this and now blames me for making people think she's a bad person. Sorry if the story is a little bit jumbled, it just makes me so upset thinking about it. Edit, thank you everyone for your kind words. I did talk to HR, and they said since it's her first offense, all they can do is give her a written warning. Also, I get my confidence from my grandma. Alright, and our next post is by Sweet Poison 02, titled, Entitled Man Steals My Plane Seat. And just to clarify, I was flying from Schiphol, so technically not Belgium. I was flying out of, but only direct flight I could get, where I had been attending my best friend's wedding. I was very sick at the time, but I was her sole bridesmaid and witness, so I couldn't miss it. Not to mention, I was the one decorating the venue. If you want a summary of how sick I was, the girl who did my makeup for the day actually jerked her hand back when she first touched my face. I was that hot. Anyway, this story isn't about the wedding, but the flight back home to Scotland. I must have looked awful, because when I arrived early at the gate and struck up a conversation with the flight attendants, asking how their day was going, etc., while waiting to board, they ensured I got my seat first, and told me if I needed anything to call them, and they brought me a bottle of water and something to nibble on before the plane even took off. I had a window seat, which I always get. I love flying and I love looking out at the water, and I'd also paid extra legroom as I have a screwed up leg, and if it's bent into one position too long, it locks up. The plane was nearly fully boarded, and it seemed like besides me and the person in the aisle seats, no one would be in our row, which was awesome. I always liked having a seat in the room for extra room. However, sadly this was not to be, as one of the very last passengers to board was a rather drunk, and let's say, portly man. He shambled into the seat and sat down. I prepared myself for a flight next to someone who smelled like a pub while I already felt sick. The plane takes off and we're in the air, and all through the flight, the guy keeps leaning more and more into my space, clearly trying to get to see the window. I actually leaned back a bit to let him see out, figuring this might be his first flight and trying to be kind, but this only seems to make it worse. Now for context, I'm a tiny woman, so I was quite literally getting crushed between this guy and the wall. I get up to go to the bathroom as my stomach finally has decided it's time to vacate. The man is quite annoyed that he has to move to let me out, but he does so with only a grumbled protest. I go to the bathroom and take care of business and then return. And what do I find? The man in my window seat with all of his stuff on the middle seat. I ask him to move back to his seat so I can sit down. He refuses and tells me it's his seat and begins to kick up a huge fuss. At this, one of the flight attendants comes over to figure out what is going on. He tells the whole story about how this is his seat and I'm trying to steal it, not knowing the flight attendant we're talking to, shout out to Kevin, was the one who had gotten me the seated in the first place. The flight attendant turned to me and, smiling, asked if I had my ticket. I'd taken my handbag with me to the bathroom as I never leave it unattended, so I was able to present it. He then read my ticket and with a crap-eating grin told the guy who'd stolen my seat that it was indeed my seat, but not to worry, he could keep it. He then turned to me and told me he had a free seat in first class and he was giving me an upgrade. So he took me to first class and I got a really nice rest of my flight. Rightio guys, our next post is by OK Flyboy, titled, Entitled Mother Wants My Window Seat but Won't Even Ask Me For It. I didn't even plan this. So a little bit of background. Normally I travel for a living and fly to and from Canada a couple of times a month. My company uses a travel agent and with only a few exceptions, we are required to take the cheapest flight option regardless of convenience/inconvenience to ourselves. This means that while I travel often, it's with different airlines every time, which in turn means that while I have thousands and thousands of airline miles that are spread out over several airlines, and it takes me forever to reach and keep any sort of frequent flyer status with any of them, it also makes for very, very long days, with me leaving my house or hotel at 3 or 4 AM, and often getting home / to my destination at midnight, or sometimes getting my travel split across 2 days. So, this happened in March, just a few days before my company started having us work for our home for quarantine. Final leg of my flight home, I'm on an airline that I've finally managed to build up enough status to start getting possible upgrades. This is literally the first time I've been upgraded, and it's from a standard economy seat to a bulkhead window seat. As I'm boarding the plane, there is an older lady and her approximately 5-year-old grandson in the aisle and middle seat. Grandson in middle, grandma in aisle. As I'm walking up, she is telling the kid that she is going to take the window seat just as soon as they're sure no one is sitting there. I politely inform her that someone is sitting there, me, and I take my seat. She then starts telling her 5-year-old grandson about how much she wants a window seat, and how sweet it would be if someone were to give up their window seat for her. I should point out that the grandson is busy playing with his iPad, and clearly isn't listening at all. When I don't immediately jump up and offer her my seat, she switches tactics, and starts asking the kid if he wants the window seat. How cool would it be for you to have a window seat on your first flight ever? And stuff such as that. Kid still doesn't give a crap and keeps playing with his tablet, and I again don't rise to the obvious bait. She then grabs a flight attendant and asks if there are any open window seats. Flight attendant says she's pretty sure that they're going to be a full flight, but she'll check back after boarding is done. Grandma switches back to how lovely it would be if someone would just give up their seat for her. Note, we're back to giving the seat to her. It's no longer about the kid getting the window seat for his first flight ever. At this point, I put on my headphones and ignore her. She stops trying to hint her way into my seat, and instead just starts loudly sighing every few minutes. Note, if at any point she had simply condescended to speak to me and ask me for my seat, I probably would have given it to her. But her passive-aggressive entitlement bullcrap was never going to work with me, especially after a long day of travel. Alright, and our next post is by Schmertopia. Titled, Entitled Friend Claims Me Getting Physically Fit Makes Her Depression Worse. Hi guys, I've been a lurker in Reddit for so long, and I finally have the courage to post something. I'm 17, female, am unfit. Though I'm not fat, I'm 49 kilos. My body is not toned and firm. I admit, I do like the exercise, and so that is why I decided that I would work out. I decided to work out on late January, and I could see the little progress that I made. My friend, let's call her A, noticed it too when I posted some pictures of me working out on Facebook. A is a little on the heavier side. She's a good friend, and I've known her since 6th grade. She's always tried to exercise and have a healthier diet, but usually she gives up in a week or 2. A messaged me, and here it goes. I translated the conversation we have in English. A says, "Hey, I see you're working out. Why would you do that?" "Oh, I just want to get toned, lol." "Stop it." "Stop what?" "Stop working out. You're making my depression worse." "I'm sorry, how is me working out making you depressed?" "Don't act like you don't know. Stop flaunting your body and stop exercising, you tramp. If you're really my friend, you would quit. Stop contributing to my anxiety and depression." Before I could respond, she had already blocked me. Well, okay then. So, A decided to tell our mutual friends about this, and now some of them had been calling me to just give her what she wants and to stop being so insensitive. I don't know what to do anymore. Edit 2. So I was finally able to talk to her, and she told me that she no longer wants to be friends with someone like me. I apologized that I offended her and even invited her to work out with me, but she said her words are final. I'm devastated to think that 5 years of friendship was gone. Thank you so much for your kind words, everyone. And our next post is by NT Engineer, titled, My Neighbor, the Hedge, and COVID-19. I've posted about my neighbor before, but this one shocked me. So today, in the middle of the day, I've been working at home, my old lady neighbor came over and knocked on the door. So I opened it up and talked to her briefly. She was complaining that my hedge hasn't been trimmed in a while, and she really wants it trimmed. This is the hedge on my property that she somehow thinks she has the right to tell me she wants it her way. After getting past that, this exchange took place. Just me trying to be friendly. I'm like, "So, how are you doing? You staying healthy? I saw that you were walking your dogs yesterday." "Oh, yes, I've been doing okay. I try to walk my dogs every day to keep moving. At my age, if you stop moving, it's hard to get started again." "Yes, it's very good to keep moving." "I did, however, have to go to the hospital this week." "Oh, are you okay?" "Yes, I went because I've been having this cough, and I don't know why, and when I went in, they decided because of my symptoms that they are testing me for the virus." "Okay then, I hope it comes back negative." Then I closed the door. Who the hell goes next door to complain about a hedge being overgrown that is not even yours if you've just been tested because you have the symptoms of COVID-19? What the literal hell? Alright, and our next post is by user Swocows, titled, "No sir, I can't valet your car. I don't care if you're friends with the president of the company." Once upon a time, I was a valet for a semi-local hotel chain. My hotel in particular had multiple floors of event space, and no on-site garage. Therefore, sometimes we would have 400 people attending an event, and we could only park a handful of cars. This night was one of those nights. We had 2 large events which had already begun 2 hours ago, and for some reason people were still showing up. In arrives our entitled man. I'm busy opening a door for someone when he pulls up in our loading zone and stands outside his car talking to someone on the phone. I walk over and he just holds out his hand with his keys and continues with his conversation. I'm like, "Hi, sorry but we're full for event parking." "Ugh, then just leave it where it's at. I'm late." "Look, unfortunately that's not a spot. I can certainly direct you to the nearest parking structure." "Oh, what's one more car? Just park it." "I'm sorry, but we just can't accommodate any more vehicles." "It's a car. It'll fit anywhere." "I'm sorry, but I don't really have room." He angrily walks back to his car, phone still in hand, then turns back towards me. "Does it help that I'm friends with the president of your company?" "No." "That I'm gonna call him and tell him that his hotel can't even valet like they're supposed to. This is unacceptable." And he huffs his way back to his car and speeds off into the sunset. Or around the block, but whatever. And I did not run into him for the rest of the night. Which was nice because I thought for sure he would come back to scream at me. He actually did call the president and told him how we couldn't valet him, in which the president laughed at him and told him to arrive earlier. Alright, and our next post was by user DivineMS_M, titled, "Old lady gets violent at Molewart over one-way arrows in the aisles." So this happened yesterday at a local Molewart. My daughter works in the vision center and they just reopened yesterday after being shut down for a month due to what else? COVID-19. My daughter was standing near the deli section waiting to pay for her drink when she heard a female start screeching. She turned around and saw an elderly woman screeching at a man because the aisle she was in had a one-way arrow. She was facing the direction of the arrow, a man was at the end of the aisle grabbing something off the end cap. He was not in the aisle at all. He also had a mask on. The woman did not have a mask on. She was headed towards the end where the man was. My daughter heard the man apologize as he grabbed his item and moved away from the woman. His apology was apparently not accepted because she started grabbing items off the shelf, hurling them at this poor man, all the while screaming obscenities at him for not maintaining a 6-foot distance, etc., etc. According to my daughter, the woman was not out of the aisle yet, and had a cart between herself and the man, and if she had just stopped and waited a moment, he would have been out of her way, like coming to a stop sign and stopping, but not this elderly Karen. She threw several items at the man and one hit him in the head and down he went. Who knew old Karen had such a throwing arm? Molewart employees immediately rushed to the man's aid and someone else called for security. The man was bleeding from his head and his nose from landing on his face. The woman was now screaming at the man and the employees and was not maintaining a 6-foot distance at all. My daughter felt terrible for the man. Her break was over, so she had to go back to work, but she did see the woman led out of the store by 2 police officers about 20 minutes later. When will this madness end? Edit, My daughter just got home from work and the police visited at her work today and took her statement. One of the other employees told them where to find her. The man is pressing charges. Alright, and our next post is by user Malachisels, titled, Homeowner uses stupid logic to get out of paying. Stupid title. Background, my husband works for a construction company and we live in a very rural area. My brother-in-law is incarcerated. One day, my husband went to a house to do a repair. While he was there, the homeowner stated that she knew my brother-in-law many years before. She and my husband chatted about the past. He left and she texted him about how it was nice to catch up with him. Later, she called his office and refused to pay because how dare the company send my husband to her house? Didn't they know that his brother was incarcerated? My husband forwarded the text to his boss and washed his hands of the whole thing. The gall of some people amazes me. And our last post is by user Liquid Fizz, titled, Entitled Old Man Tries to Force Me, a Disabled Girl, to Give Up My Seat in a Communal Area. A few years ago, I, 18 female, 15 female at the time, went on holiday with my mother, my dad, brother, aunt and uncle, and their friends, who were a couple. My aunt and uncle live far away from us, so the holiday was specially planned to spend time with them and to show their friends the brilliant parts of our country. One evening, the family decided we would walk down to this fabulous deck with a lovely view of nature and the sunset for some evening drinks. This deck also served as the waiting area for the reception of the hotel we were staying in, and as a result, had about 5 areas of seating with enough space for about 6 people at each. My brother and I decided we would walk down a little before while the adults got ready. When we got there, we picked a spot with a good view, put our stuff down and ordered some cool drinks. 10 minutes later, my uncle arrives with his wife and her friend, who immediately go to check out the curio shop. He sits down and orders a beer. It arrives, but then he gets up to look for his wife and her friend to ask what they'd like to drink. Shortly after this, a tour guide arrived with at least 20 couples on his tour. They're obviously then all waiting to be booked in. It's worth noting that his guests were all elderly, but that they were in no way unable to stand for long periods of time. With my brother and I, and the other people who were previously in the reception area, there weren't enough seats for them all. Now, I have a very visible physical disability that renders me unable to walk without a walking frame. If I even attempt to stand without it, I'll fall on my face. The tour guide walks over to me and my brother and says, while leaning on my walker, "Excuse me, but you two need to move now. My guests need to sit down here." My brother and I were a bit taken aback, and we didn't really think it was fair, considering that it's not only the reception, but also a place for social gathering, and that seats work on a first-come, first-served basis. However, because our parents always taught us to give up our seats to the elderly, I slowly start getting up. At this point, my uncle returns and says, "Excuse me, but what are you doing? We were here first." The guy replies with, "You need to respect your elders. My guests need those seats. They," referring to us, "can move. This is my business." My uncle calmly comes back with, "Sorry, but I don't know if you've realized that she's disabled and can't stand for long periods of time. Who are you to tell her to move? We won't be moving." The guy calls my uncle an asshole and tells him to show some respect, but he goes away huffing. Not even 10 seconds later, people in his tour come up to my uncle and say, "Well done for standing your ground. We're so sorry for his behavior, it's embarrassing." The guy comes back later to try to give my uncle an inadequate apology, which my uncle accepts, but says to him, "Considering that your guests told me themselves that your behavior is embarrassing, I think you need to rethink your business skills." He walked away red and avoided us the whole evening. We had a lovely dinner. Beautiful baby ducklings manhandled by entitled mothers' disgusting brats. This happened when I was having a cigarette in a quaint country pub garden in the east of England. The place is stunning countryside dotted with local pubs. Everyone knows who is local. Every summer, the pubs are filled with rude, disgusting Londoners and their brats. Story time. I had been out in the lovely flowered pub garden a few times already as I was drinking beers on a gorgeous sunny afternoon with friends. I chain smoke when I drink. Every time I went out, I was thrilled to see this lovely white mother duck tending to her baby ducklings. There were about 7 of them, and the pub staff explained that the mum duck comes back each day to get food from the staff members and to chill in the sun with her fluffy ducklings. I'm back in the pub with my mates when an entitled mother and her 4 snotty, loud, disgusting brats enter. They proceed to make a load of noise and generally ruin the vibes. We ignore them. After a while, I walk outside for my final smoke, and I am followed by entitled mother and her brats. It turns out entitled mother smokes too. We both light up and ignore each other, and immediately her brats spot the mother duck and her babies. They all squeal and run over to the birds, and to be honest, they were so loud, I looked at the mum, already expecting her to say something reasonable like, "Calm down guys, you don't want to scare the babies." But instead she just watched her brats fondly. I watched the mother duck panic and try to usher her babies away from the entitled kids, but they all ran up and surrounded the birds, trapping them all in a corner by the wall. They then proceed to start grabbing at the babies and roughly trying to pick them up. The mother duck and her babies start to quack in panic. Outraged, I look at the entitled mother and she is still smiling at her brats, as if this was the sweetest thing in the world. So I turn back to the entitled kids and shout, "Don't touch the babies, just look at them." Entitled mother turns to me with a screwed up face and says, "How dare you speak to my children like that? They aren't doing any harm." I look back to see all the entitled kids still grabbing at the babies and distressing the mum. One of the entitled kids is even picking up a baby duckling by its wing. I scream, "Put those fudging babies down now, you little craps." The mum turns to me with a death stare and says, "If you talk to my babies like that again." At this point, I look at her with an even deadlier stare, and I say in a shaking voice, "That duck is a mother too, and if you don't do something, I will manhandle your babies, the same way they are hers." The mother looked at me like she was gonna argue, but saw I wasn't kidding. She shouted her brats over and stormed inside. I finished my cigarette and watched the ducks leave the garden looking panicked. When I got back to my table, my mate said the woman was making a complaint about me to the bar staff. They came over and said the entitled mother told them I threatened her kids. I told them her entitled kids were grabbing the ducklings, and I politely asked them to stop. I denied the threat. They asked the entitled mother whether her brats had grabbed the ducklings, and she said they only wanted to hold them, they wouldn't hurt a fly. The bar staff then told her and her brats to leave, and when she kicked up a fuss, they said, "Those ducks are locals, lady, piss off." Hope you enjoyed that one. Our next post is by Flippy is King 18, titled, "Entitled Mother Calls the Cops When I Wouldn't Give Any Steak to Her Son." This happened maybe about a year ago, before the whole pandemic started. The weather had been nice and I had just gotten some sirloin steaks. I haven't used my grill since the previous year, so I decided now would be a good time to try it out. For a few days, a group of construction workers had been busy working on a new house. It's built now, and it's pretty nice. Way too expensive for me though, but it had been hot and or rainy almost the entire duration of the build, and they were working their asses off the whole way through. So I decided to be nice, and after going over to the site, I yelled for them to come get some free food when they went on break. They were incredibly grateful. There were about 5 workers present, and 4 of them showed up for steak while the others passed. I had enough for everyone, including one for me, and we had a nice time chatting and getting to know one another. One was a veteran of the Marines back in the early 80s. He's friends with my grandma now. One was even related to the sheriff of our county. Anyway, amid the conversation, we heard an "excuse me" from the other side of the fence. My neighbor is this middle-aged woman with a super freaky son. He was this stoner influencer who loved to go on social media and post about his fetish for pot and live off his mother's paycheck every week while living on her couch. He was also in his mid-30s. There she was, on the other side of the fence. Our cast are entitled mum, grown-ass kid, construction worker 1 and 2, and police officer. Entitled mum says, "My son was wondering if he can have some steak too. Sorry, I don't have any left. But you have enough for all of them? Yeah, I do. If he wanted some, he should have come earlier. No, you should have bought enough for everyone. Look, lady, this guy was nice enough to cook steak. Don't you have work you should be doing? We're on lunch, ma'am. She soon left, in a huff, but not before shouting that she was calling the police. I was the only one who heard that, I think, so I asked the relative of the sheriff if there was really anything the police would arrest me for. Of course, he said no. In his words, there are no laws against not sharing. I asked if we should tell her that, and he again said no. Again in his words, it would be the most fun they've had on the job ever since they started building that damn house. Note, I actually did have an extra steak. I was saving it for later. Sure enough, after the construction workers went back to the site, who's to show up but a police officer? No lights, so it's a non-emergency. But he parked right outside entitled mother's house. Both her and the grown-ass kid walked out and greeted the police officer. I walked out on my own lawn, and entitled mother pointed straight at me. I can't quite remember everything said here, but she was accusing me of discrimination because I left her 30-ish-year-old little boy out of our little steak party. I swear, it was like a kindergarten lunch. Police obviously shook it off, warned her not to get the police involved in something so ridiculous again, and started to leave. But I said, "Wait, officer, are you hungry?" "Well, I haven't had lunch yet. Why? May I offer you a steak?" "I knew it! You do have more steak. I demand you give it to my son now. And I demand you both to go back into your house before I arrest you for disturbing the peace, and possibly harassment. But you can't do that. He can't do that. Tell him, grown-ass kid." I just wanted some steak, man." "Officer, you have to do something about this. This man is performing a hate crime on my son." We both actually laughed. Police officer said something along the lines of, "Have a good day," and I led him into my backyard. I had to give him his steak raw. It's not the only kidding, since he had to go back on his patrol. But we had a good laugh. Entitled mother and grown-ass kid finally went back into their house, and every time I see them nowadays, she scowls at me, while grown-ass kid just pays no attention. I occasionally see the same officer from time to time, and every time I see him, he asks the same thing. "Did you remember to share today? Our next post is by user RazyRaygon, titled, "That time I knocked an entitled mother out in self-defense. Buckle up, buckaroos. This might break the rules, but I was defending myself and others. I don't condone unnecessary violence. Our cast are me, entitled mother, nice kid, nice dad." Okay, so I'm at a local big box store, having walked there. This was years ago, when I was in my early 20s and before I got a car. I was walking around in the electronics section, just window shopping and killing time before my dad got off work and picked me up so we could clean gutters for one of his friends who was wheelchair bound. Nice kid comes running around the corner and runs into me. I manage to keep myself from falling over, but this kid stumbles and falls. He yelps and then gets up. His dad rushes over, but didn't see anything. After verifying the nice kid is okay, he scolds me for running after being told not to, and then both apologize to me. Enter entitled mother, a massively overbearing woman that immediately gives me the 3rd degree about how I'm irresponsible, violent, and hurt her baby, and must be drunk and high at the same time because I'm stumbling. Both nice dad and I inform her that I'm not the one at fault, but she gets in my face and starts poking my chest with her fake nails hard enough to hurt me, telling me to apologize or she'll have me thrown out because she is friends with the owner. I tell her to I tell her to back off because she's being rude, hurting me, and she smells like she's been drinking. She slaps my face hard enough to cause me to see stars and I lose my balance. I stand up, clear my head, and tell her to back off, as does the nice dad. She walks up and slashes my face with her nails, and might have blinded me if I wasn't wearing glasses. She then slaps me again as I'm reeling from the pain. Cue my "I'm the youngest child, I have to defend myself from older cousins" instincts. I lash out blindly, and right hook catches her in the chin as she starts pulling my hair. Next thing I know, she's flopping to the ground unconscious. Employee had already called management and another customer called 911 after entitled mother clawed me, as I was bleeding kinda badly. Manager brought me some paper towels and a medkit. EMTs checked us both out and said most of my bleeding was from scratches near my eyes, which will be fine after a few more minutes. She likely didn't have a concussion, but she was acting dramatically, screaming and uncooperative. They took her by ambulance at her own request to get her checked out at the hospital. Cops got testimonies and only hers didn't match up. Even Nice Dad sided with me. Cops arrested her at the hospital later for assault and battery, false testimony, and for attacking 2 nurses, a doctor, and one of the cops. I got off with a "you shouldn't have done that, try to not hit people in the future" lecture from my dad afterwards. As I was defending myself, I had no charges brought against me. Happy ending to the story is that family was there so the nice dad could drop off the nice kid after weekend visitation. She lost custody. I attended nice kid's birthday a couple weeks later and got them the game that they wanted. Had to buy it used, but they didn't care. I don't condone violence and was in a full panic mode. I should not have hit her, but I felt I was in danger. Edit for clarification. I shouldn't have swung like I did because I've learned how to throw a punch and make it hurt. I'm not saying I shouldn't have defended myself, but I could have seriously injured her, or possibly killed her, since she may have hit her head on the way to the floor. The chances were good that she'd be fine, but this could have ended very badly. Edit 2 for clarification. Dad didn't lecture me because he didn't want me to defend myself. Dad knew I was capable of defending that situation without knocking someone out. I know many ways to do so, and he lectured me about learning more self-control and applying said techniques instead of slugging the insert favorite insult here, slugging the noggin, as we'll say. Techniques such as walk away before it gets to the fighting. Our next post is by Itchy Rat, titled, Entitled Parents Ignores Birthday to Bathe Dog. So today was my 31st birthday, and I had mentioned to my family that I had baked a cake and some cookies for my birthday celebration, and they told me that of course they would come over for a couple of hours on the day in question. Then the day of rolls by, and I hear nothing. Not even a happy birthday text or anything. So I call my mother up and ask her if they were coming by at any point during the day, only to be met by the, "No, we decided to give the dog's name a bath instead." This is also the second year in a row when my entire family just up and either ignores or forgets about my birthday. Yay for being a middle child. And our next post is by GoTosis12, titled, Entitled Auntie Thinks She Can't Take My Xbox One to Give Her Entitled Brat. Probably sure that's can take my Xbox One, but whatever. So a quick rundown. I own an Xbox as well as a PC. I play on both of them as I have different saves on different platforms. My auntie and cousin are both entitled, and they think that they can have my Xbox, but I refused. Our cast are entitled auntie, entitled cousin, me, and my mother. The conversation goes like this. My auntie's like, "Can I have your Xbox for my son?" "No, sorry, I still use it." "But you're not using it now." "That doesn't mean I don't use it." By now, I'm getting a bit irritated, as you would. "But you don't need it because you have a PC, and my angel needs it more than you." "I'm sorry, but unless you want to buy it off me, I'm not giving it to you." By now, entitled auntie is frustrated. Enter entitled cousin. "Mum, I want an Xbox." Just randomly saying that, is he? "I know, darling, but I want it now." Shut up. He is now in full temper tantrum on the floor. Mind you, he's almost 11. He's so old. "Hand over your Xbox or I'll tell your mother." "Sure, go ahead." I then close my bedroom door a few minutes later. So why didn't he do it immediately? I have spoken to entitled auntie. What did she say? My mother goes on about how her and her angels need it more than I do, but my mother is very supportive of my gaming and said she refused for entitled auntie to take it. After, entitled cousin did end up getting an Xbox One, which was a crappy pre-owned one, and entitled auntie has no longer bugged me. This was typed on mobile, by the way. Reminds me of Nursultan Toyakbai in the Borat movie, where he's like, I get a clock radio he cannot afford. It's great success. Our next post is by user, yup, it's no one. Titled, Entitled Parent Tries to Coach Own Daughter on How to Treat Retail Staff Rudely. So this is a story about my own mother. Yup, she's the entitled parent. So, I am a young lady with a rather large chest. I'm an E in my country and I think a double D in the USA. Because of that, if I'm leaving the house, bras are mandatory. About 2 years ago when I was 19, I bought the most comfortable bra I have ever bought before. It was soft and silky, had nice thick straps, 5 back clamps, etc. I only had that bra for about 3 months until the underwire broke free and started to stab me. It happened at university, and when I got home that afternoon, I told my mother about it. I like to think that I take good care of my bras, as I usually only get rid of them because I outgrew them, or the straps became too loose beyond adjustment, but not because they break. The bra was $60 and only 3 months old, so maybe it was just defective? Bras really should not only last 3 months, so I was going to go to the store and ask for an exchange or refund. The only thing was, I did not have a receipt. Like I said, I take good care of my bras, so I did not think to keep the receipt. I also was not part of their brand's customer reward service, as I only bought products from there once for a sale, so they could not look up a name/membership/profile with them. I told this to my mum and wondered what I should do. She's like, well, that's not okay, my mother started. You know what to do, right? Let them know that it is illegal for them not to sell faulty products. Do not leave the store until you have that refunded, and if the cashier says that they can't refund it without a receipt, then ask to speak to the manager. They'll sort you out. FYI, my mother never worked in retail herself, but I, at this point in time, had been for about 4 to 5 years. I know the annoyance of the phrase, "Can I speak to your manager?" and was not going to enforce that on an innocent civilian. No, I'm not going to do that, I replied. That would just be rude. Well, I could just do it for you then. I'll just say, my daughter bought a defective bra, which is illegal to sell, and we demand a refund because according to the law... No, we're not doing that either. It's not the cashier's fault that one bra happened to be defective, so I'm not going to treat them as if it is. I'll just go in, explain my situation, and ask what their policy is about refunds without a receipt. So you know what, ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly what I did. I walked in, found the cashier, and explained that my $60 bra broke in 3 months, and I did not have the receipt in the friendliest and kindest way possible, because I know how much working retail sucks. The lady said that she did need some proof of purchase, and asked me what day I bought it on. She was so kind and lovely as well, and I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, I looked at the transaction 3 months ago, and found the date of the exact $60 purchase. I gave her the date, she typed that into her computer, and found a transaction on that date, for $60, the exact bra, colour and size as mine. She printed that off, scanned that, and refunded the original purchase, all while a different attendant found the same bra in my size off the shelf, and brought all 3 colour options to me in case I wanted the replacement in a different colour. I chose the original colour, thanked both ladies for their amazing help, and walked out of the store with my new and non-defective bra. See, Mum? You can have a social interaction without belittling retail staff, acting like a know-it-all, and God forbid, demand to speak to the manager. Just be kind. Our next post is by user Spiky Steve, titled, Entitled Mother Yanks Off My Beanie, revealing my battered, mostly bald head to our entire family. So, this obviously happened before quarantine, but I didn't have Reddit at the time, and it's still by far the most mortifying experience I've ever had. This story includes G, my good friend, entitled mother, G's entitled mum, and me. So, I, 15 female, struggle with this disorder called trichotillomania. It's basically where you use hair pulling as a coping mechanism when things get stressful in life. At the time this happened, I was almost completely bald because of it. I had patches of wiry, regrowing hair, and some completely bald patches. It was not a pretty sight, and I wore a beanie 24/7 to cover it up. Luckily, I had really supportive, understanding friends who did so much to cheer me up on a daily basis. So, my friend G invited me round to her house for dinner one night. I'd known her family since primary school, so I was aware of her mum's strict dinner table policies. They were pretty acceptable, no coats, hats, elbows on the table, etc. But I figured my friend had explained my situation to her and she would understand. This was definitely not the case. She was visibly uncomfortable with me wearing the beanie as we sat down to eat. She says, "My name? Would you mind taking off your hat at the dinner table?" Me immediately uncomfortable, considering how to explain the situation in front of G's younger brother. "Mum, it's okay, just leave it." "Oi, don't talk back to me like that. This is my dinner table, and I don't allow outdoor clothes during meal times. Entitled mother, I'm really sorry, but I'd prefer to keep it on for personal reasons." She now gets up and is like, "This is ridiculous. Just take off the hat." When I didn't budge, she grabbed the top of my beanie and started to pull it off. My hands darted to my head, trying to resist. She went to make a comment about me being childish, but promptly shut up as soon as she revealed my battered, patchy, and bald head. Her mouth kinda hung open for a second or two, as the rest of the table stayed silent. My friend, bless her, was furious with her entitled mother, yanked my precious beanie from her hands, and quickly rushed me from the table. Edit, just in case anyone is interested. Nothing much happened after this incident. My friend was really apologetic for her mum, and I was honestly too shocked and embarrassed to know what to say. She discreetly let me out of the house because I wasn't comfortable in that environment anymore. Later on, I know that my mum had a discussion with her. I don't want to get into a whole other story with this, but entitled mother started to exercise her gossipy Karen nature around the other parents. In the end, she did give me an apology. It was awkward, but I accepted it. And our last story for the day is by Heterochromia Cat, titled, "An entitled parent told me to turn off my in-flight movie because of the gay kissing." No, not the gay! This occurred fall of 2019. I was on a 14-hour flight that was only half full. There were storms recently prior to takeoff, so almost all connecting flights to arrive at that airport were late. This meant I had a whole 3-hour seat row to myself since those flyers didn't make it. Almost every row was like this. Into the flight, I had finished my third movie. It's impossible for me to sleep on planes, so I continued looking through the movie list until I saw Rocketman. I've never seen it, but heard good things about it. Towards halfway through the film, the song Take Me to the Pilot came on and a gay sex scene with Elton John and John Reed started playing. I was a little surprised, but I didn't skip since the cabin was dark and everyone else was watching their own screen or sleeping, so I thought. I felt someone poke my shoulder from behind. It was a middle-aged woman. She says, "You need to stop what you're watching. That's extremely inappropriate for my kid." I glanced at her boy, probably about 12, in the middle seat who was sleeping. The kid even had a sleeping mask on, so how the heck could he even see my movie anyway? This part will be over soon. There's been no nudity in it, and I turned around. I could hear her scoff loudly. I'm assuming she pressed the help button since a flight attendant came over 10 seconds later. Record scratch, that's extremely fast for a flight attendant on a bloody international flight. Gee, I have to wait like 20 minutes to get one. By the time the flight attendant came to our section, the steamy scene was finished anyway. And no, there was no nudity, just steamy kissing and pectorals. Flight attendant's like, "May I help you?" "Yes, this person is watching gay porn. My kid can see that and doesn't need to know about those relationships." "She's watching a movie provided on the list. There's nothing I can do except advise you to watch your own screen." "It's not a family appropriate movie on a plane. She needs to change the movie or turn it off." I apologize, but she has the right to watch what she wants to watch. If there are further complaints in the future, we could take action. The flight attendant walked to the back of the plane. I heard entitled mother say, "Ridiculous," under her breath. I was super tempted to rewind back to Elton's One Night Stand, but I didn't need that BS at the moment. Later, I turned around at her during the Elton's drug and alcohol overdose at his pool party, and her eyes was fixated on my screen. She must have enjoyed the movie. Entitled sister reneged on a promise, and it cost her. This happened around 1996 when I was 10 years old. At the time, my sister was acting out a lot and was always in and out of trouble. This is just one of many stories from that era. In the summer of 1996, my older sister was regularly going across the street to hang out with two neighbor girls whose family had a pool. Every kid on the street wanted to swim in this pool, because the homeowner had built a deck around it that everyone could chill on and jump into the pool from. I, of course, wanted to go swimming there as well, but I wasn't often invited. Most other kids just walked in and were allowed to swim. But before long, I was noticing my sister was going more and more without me. I ended up the lonely kid sitting in his room or in the front yard playing a Game Boy Pocket. One day, my sister tells me that she wanted to do something funny with my hair. Nothing permanent, mind you, but my hair had gotten long enough that you could make it look crazy with a few tweaks. She took some hair ties and made my hair into some style I don't remember. Then my sister told me that if I kept that hairstyle for the rest of the day and let our parents see it, then I could go to the pool party at the neighbor's house that Saturday. I jumped at the opportunity to go and agreed. I did exactly as she asked, and our parents had a good laugh about it. That Saturday, my sister ran ahead to the party and left me behind. I got ready and walked over with an inflatable tube around my waist that I think looked like some animal. Been too long, don't remember what it was. I got to the gate for the neighbor's backyard. I did not try to open it for myself, as that would have been rude. The rule was that you were supposed to be let in, and I didn't want to make anyone mad. My sister was playing in the water with several other kids. I had to call out a few times before any of them even acknowledged me. My sister gave me a mean look and asked why I was there. I said to her, "You promised me I could come to the party if I did what you wanted." She looked at me and said, "Yeah, so? So? You promised me. I don't care. Get out." And then I hobbled across the street, sobbing at what had just happened. I just sat by a tree in my front yard crying because I didn't know what to do. After 10 minutes of me loudly crying non-stop, my mum came out to see what was wrong and why I wasn't at the party. I explained in detail what had happened and what she said to me. There was a fire in my mum's eyes that could have melted ice with a glare. She stormed across the street. The ground seemed to cave with every footstep as she stomped over. A few minutes later, she came back, dragging my sister by her arm, kicking and screaming. My sister got grounded for a week, and my mum instituted a new rule. If she was to ever go to another pool party at the neighbor's house again, I had to be invited too. My sister screamed that it was not fair, and openly blamed me for the whole mess. Lo and behold, the neighbor's girls stopped inviting my sister over all the time. We lived there for 3 more years, and she only got to go to maybe 1 or 2 pool parties over there again. And she blamed me for it for 2 years straight. I called her out on breaking her promise to me, and she just said it was a joke. Like that was supposed to be a good reason for what she did. After we moved in 1999, my sister seemed to forget all about it. I ended up bringing up the story again in my late 20s and told everything in detail just like I did here. My sister, who was about 30 at the time, broke down crying because she had totally forgotten about it till I reminded her, and she apologized to me profusely for her behavior back then. She used to be somewhat entitled, but not anymore. Edit, I would like to clarify that my sister no longer being allowed to go to pool parties next door without me back then didn't mean that she no longer got to hang out with those 2 girls. She still went over to their house and played with them regularly, and they were still very nice to me. We even had Super Soaker Wars in summer. The rule was only for the pool parties. Plus my sister admitted to me years later that both those girls weren't as nice as they seemed, but there weren't a lot of other kids on the street for her to hang out with. Our next post is by user Lydia PZP, titled, "Can you wake your husband up so I can ask him something I could have asked you instead?" This happened a few years ago. Something else I read on here reminded me of that incident, so here it is. When we first bought our house, it was my husband, my brother, and I living together. My brother was responsible for paying for the internet, plus he pitched in on the rest of the utilities. My husband was working overnights, so he slept during the day. I had the most free time, so I was fixing the house and was often around if any of our neighbors stopped by. Our cast are me, dear husband, my brother, and the neighbor who also happened to be a drug dealer, as we later found out. I was outside working in the front yard, so I wouldn't make too much noise while dear husband was sleeping. Dear neighbor comes over and asks if dear husband is home. I say yes, but he's sleeping. Wake him up. I want to ask him something. I'm not waking him up. He's working overnights. If you need something, then you can ask me. But I need to talk to him. Tough luck. He's sleeping and I'm not waking him up. Dear neighbor, looking frustrated. I wanted to ask if I can use your internet. I get a strong signal from you. Can you give me the password? My brother pays for the internet, so he would be the one to ask. Fine. Can you get brother? So I got brother, who didn't really like the neighbor, and for a good reason. Neighbor asks him for the password, and he says, no, that's a security risk. And without another word, brother walks away. Neighbor left after that, so I was able to get back to work. This wasn't the first or the last time neighbor asked to get me dear husband for something I could have answered. I don't know if it's because I'm a woman, or if it's because I'm an immigrant. But apparently, I can't answer any questions or make any decisions. Dear husband just has to be the one to do it all, even though everyone was well aware of his work schedule. Our next post is by Formula Fan 123, titled, Entitled Couples Steal a Cat, End Up with Bills Costing More Than the Cat Itself. So this has been going on for years, and now it has reached a conclusion. I thought I will finally post it. Our cast are Auntie, Uncle, Vet, Entitled Couple, EW and EM, which is Entitled Woman and Man, and the daughter of Entitled Couple plus her kids. Story. This started 4 years ago when my auntie and uncle adopted 2 cats. One is very quiet and sleeps a lot and doesn't really go too far from the house. The other cat is the exact opposite. He goes out loads, he only stays in for food and sleep and has an appetite all the time. One day the cat didn't come home for a week. Okay, suspicious but definitely not strange for a cat. Then it happens again and again. By now, my auntie is getting worried and buys a cat tracker. It turns out that the cat was spending his time in a nearby house. At this point, my uncle went round and talked to them about it. Instantly, they denied everything. They didn't encourage the cat or feed it or anything. Suspicious. It becomes more apparent over the next couple of months they were talking out of their asses. The cat is getting fatter and fatter until one day on a visit to the vets, he is placed on a list for at-risk animals. By now, my auntie is angry, and to be fair, I can see why. These people were denying that they had ever fed the cat at all, whilst causing it health problems that could cost it thousands in vet bills. This all boiled down to what can only be described as one of the most entitled acts I have ever heard. At a family gathering, the entitled couple's daughter is just leaving when she spots the cat and decides it's now hers. She just picked it up and drove it back home. 50 miles back home. Fortunately for us, there were some plumbers doing work in the street who watched her take the cat. At first, they had no idea whose cat it was. But when my uncle started asking around to see if anyone had seen it, they told him. We were astonished that they had the audacity to do that, and what's more, they claimed it was their cat they had lost. My uncle was friends with someone who knew the entitled couple's daughter quite well, and confirmed that they had lost a ginger cat who was quite old. The cat they had taken was black. They lost their cat over a year before. How can people be so stupid? This is where my aunt calls in backup. Legal backup. In court, entitled couple are given a cease and desist, as well as bills for healthcare issues the cat had during his time at their house. Entitled couple's daughter is told to give the cat back and is also given a community service project to complete. On animal welfare. Oh, the irony. All went well. But wait, the entitlement continues. When entitled couple's daughter brought the cat back to my auntie, she was ticked. She virtually threw the cat to my auntie and started a screaming rant with the whole street watching. She says, "Me and my kids deserve this cat more." A classic. "Then why don't you just buy one?" ECD completely ignored this. "My kids are so sad. You should at least pay for a new cat for us." "Sorry? Are you off your head?" "Oh my god, why don't you just take your cat and leave me alone? Oh my god." "Please leave." And she screams again. Then, as entitled couple's daughter drives away, she flicks off my aunt as she gives her a friendly wave. Edit: it has been pointed out that I didn't explain well on 2 parts. 1. The bills that entitled couple had to pay were for treatment for weight loss and diabetes. 2. Yes, the cat is allowed outside. It was a rescue and gets violent when not allowed out. The other one is a Burman cat, so stays in. Our next post is by user Godly Kid, titled, "She thinks she has to get in line in front of me." Entitled mother thinks she is entitled to get in front of me in line. So I was in line at the store to get some groceries. I saw that the person behind me had just 1 item. So I smiled politely and told her she could go in front of me. She thanked me and went in front of me. That's when entitled mum came in, so I turned back around in line when I heard entitled mother. She says, "Hey, you let that lady in front of you go in front of you. I have kids, so I should be able to get in front of you too." I turn around to see her shopping cart filled to the brim. I tried to smile politely again, though it was really hard. And then I reply, "She only had 1 item, so I let her stand in front of me." Then I turned around and faced the front again, hoping that the conversation was over. But then I hear her shrill and outraged voice. "How stupid is this? I have to get in front of you. I have kids." She gestured wildly at her 2 kids, who were both staring at their mum. I turned back around, this time not even trying to smile, and start talking again. "I got in line before you, and it's my choice if I let anyone go before me or not." Her face turned extremely red, and then she shouted, "You have no respect for your elders." At that point, everyone was staring at us. My face felt hot as I turned back around to face the front of the line. Then my turn came. Except when I started to put the items on the counter, the lady shoved in hers before I could. The employee at the register saw what was going on and quickly intervened. He took the items and pushed them to the side. Then he said, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but this young man got in line first, so he gets to go first. Please don't make a big deal." Now, this employee was an elderly man, so the lady couldn't scream, "You have no respect for your elders" again, which was a big relief because her voice was really high. The rest went as it should have, except the lady's face was bright red. I got my items and I walked back home. And in the comments, Verdeyed says, "I saw someone try to skip in line the other day. The guy was social distancing, so she scooted over in front. The guy just stood there and waited for her to load up her stuff in the conveyor, walked through the line next to it, and walked in front of her. Then he took the separator and pushed all of her stuff back onto the ground, looked her dead in the eyes and said, 'It would be smart not to try that in the future.' The checkout girl could hardly breathe. She was trying so hard not to laugh." Alex De Winter says, "I was in a checkout line at Dollar Tree. Only 1 cashier, other was at lunch. Lady in front of me was playing with her crotch goblin and ignoring everyone else. I was behind and to the right of her. Other people came up and got in line on the other side. So when she moved forward, I moved in behind her. She turned around and told me that the other person was behind her. I told her that she didn't even bother looking around, or she would have known that I was already waiting in line. So she beckoned the other lady to go in front of her, and then turned to me, yelling, 'See what you did? Now I'm going to be late because of you. You don't have any manners. You should always let a woman go in front of you.' Nope, I don't cater to the whims of entitled expletives such as yourself. Kindly freak off and leave me alone." Our next post is by Rainbow K, titled, "Neighbors wanted to get the city involved over a shared fence." My parents live next to an interesting European couple. We have so many stories on them. One year, my father had taken leave from his job and decided it was time to change all the fencing. We never asked any of our conjoined neighbors to help us foot the bill. He just let them all know that it was happening. You know, good neighborly stuff. The year he decided to do this, he mentioned it to our entitled neighbors just before they left for their yearly vacation overseas. They always go for approximately 6 months of the year, so my dad planned to do it then, since he would need to be on their driveway for a small portion of it. This is where he was able to make the fence higher, as it would be part of our decking, right at the back door to the house. The neighbors came back and were furious, stating we were blocking their views. There are no views. They are enclosed by large houses and people's backyards, and that it was an ugly colour. It was cedarwood clear coat finish. We brushed them off and forgot about it. A few days later, there was a knock on our door from a city official. He and my dad went through the city plan and everything my dad did to code. When they were done, the official went next door to tell the neighbors the news. It turns out my dad had built within our lot. The official gave him the option of tearing down the fence on the neighbor's side and relocating it to our property lines, which happened to run down the middle of his driveway and through his garage. They also got left with a permanent reminder of it as the official spray-painted markers of where our property was. Wait, is their garage and driveway halfway into their parents' property? Did I read that right? I think the property line cuts through the neighbor's driveway and garage. Same, and it could very much happen if the neighbor's house was built without garage and driveway. If whoever lived in that house, possibly before entitled couple, when those were added, thought, my house needs a garage and a driveway, and look, there's so much space from our house wall to the OP neighbors, so why not there? Well, maybe because OP's family hadn't taken materialistic advantage of their rightful property/lines? If the people living there didn't check the lines, this issue would easily occur. Both houses were built around the 1950s, and the original property lines were never changed from then until now, so it was a surprise to my parents. We all moved in about 15 years ago, so all was standing, but we had no idea until this all occurred. Purple Smith says, growing up, my parents' property line was 3 feet too close to the garage. We had a lease with the neighbors for that 3 foot, spanning the length of the property line for $50 a year. Super cheap because we were all friendly and respectful. When we moved, the new owners were dicks. The cool neighbors charged them $50 a month for the same 3-foot bit. Turned out, our lease was the same as the new owners, but since we were a cool family, they only charged us in January each year. What would you guys do about a property encroaching on yours like that? Would you have them remove the building? Anyway, our next post is by Nutmega23, titled, She Gives Born Again a Bad Name. My sister, entitled sister, was the firstborn child and grandchild on both sides, so she got used to being put on a pedestal quite early. Entitled sister was smart, but as she got older, it was apparent she lacked both common sense and common courtesy. She was also a master manipulator, so mum and dad did everything for her. This would come to bite them in the rear later in life. When our father was ill, the only time entitled sister and her husband, brother-in-law, would visit him would be the 1 hour a day his favorite television show was on. Other than that, nothing. At the post-funeral dinner, entitled sister made sure to load her plate with extra food, and brother-in-law said the waitress didn't deserve a tip because she wouldn't fill entitled sister's wineglass to the rim. There is a legal limit, mates. They left paying less than their share. When our mother got ill, entitled sister and brother-in-law would visit, expecting mum to serve them, but not take her out or anything. Once, after they took mum to the doctor, mum was quite nauseous for the rest of the day, and entitled sister had to sit in the front seat while hubby drove. Mum begged me not to ever let them take them to the doctor again. Once, they left mum leaning against a couch after mum's leg was broken in an accident. They couldn't move mum to a chair because entitled sister and brother-in-law have bad backs. So why couldn't they have asked me for help? I was nearby. In the end, entitled sister showed her true self when mum asked her for help with something, and entitled sister outright refused. Mum died, knowing just how unimportant she was to entitled sister. It's amazing how people show their true colors when their parents are dying. I have a cousin whose mother's got sick. Instead of taking care of her, he already lived with her and was 40 years old at the time, lived with her his entire life. He sent her to a nursing home. This story is going to start to sound ridiculous, but I swear it's true. He broke his hips falling on some ice and checked into the very same nursing home that she was at. He was in heaven. He loved being waited on, scheduled meals, etc. His room was down the hall from hers. As far as I know, he never ever went down to her room to see her in the month he was there. She died soon after. This guy was coddled on by his mother his entire life. She cooked for him, did almost everything for him. He's about 60 now and still lives in that same house and has never been married. When I read he broke his hip, I was like, karma! But I kept reading and that went downhill real quick. Honestly, I blame the mum for some of that. People don't do their kids any favors when they coddle them and inhibit them from growing up and becoming independent adults. Some kids break away and some don't. Guess your cousin didn't. I call that 75% parent and 25% kid, mainly from seeing the dynamic with my mum and little sister. It's crippling for a parent to treat a kid that way and started from infancy. Not a lot a kid can do to combat it well. Took some very hard times and hard struggle for my mum and sis to curb the dynamic. What do you guys think of dynamics like that? My mum has been like that with me for a bit. I think that's just because I struggled in life a lot, but I feel like I'm independent now, so could be like a case-by-case basis. Not sure. Our next post is by Cleonardo96, titled, Entitled Teacher Insists that there is a law forcing me to marry my cousin. Ha! Roll Tide! So first off, this happened a few years ago, and I'm on a crap load of meds. So I'm a little loopy, so my storytelling might not be the best. So I was in an online class, but my teacher insisted on us all meeting up once or twice a week. That didn't seem so bad that it was a language class after all, but I was the only one that was ever there and we rarely ever talked about class-related stuff. One day I mentioned that I was native. I'm white passing, but I'm a card-carrying tribal member raised on the res my whole life. My teacher was super white, and this is when it got crazy. She started saying that there were laws saying I needed to marry within my tribe to keep the bloodlines going. I told her that my tribe is very small and we are all cousins or aunties, uncles, nieces, plus there is no law. She insisted that it was a tribal law and that I needed to have my kids with cousins to keep the bloodlines pure. She insisted for about 20 minutes, even saying once I fulfill my duty of keeping the bloodlines pure, I can divorce my cousin and do whatever I wanted, and eventually I just gave up. The next time she wanted to meet, I was creeped out and skipped out. After that, my grades went down. I had nothing under an 87% previously, and now suddenly I was getting 5% on all of my assignments. I went to the dean and they said it was unacceptable, and they talked to her, and she said it was a misunderstanding. I had to meet with her on campus for the remainder of the semester, but she gave me 100% no matter what, so I guess that's a win. I have a couple of what the hells here. One, as a teacher, what the hell is she doing telling a student who to marry and sleep with? 2, as a white person, not associated with the tribe whatsoever, what the hell does it matter to her who you have kids with? She's a teacher and white, so therefore she knows everything better than those backward oh. What the hell? Such a colonizer attitude. I know your laws better than you. Pfft, bullshit. Yeah, like she was in the tribal meeting every month. Eye roll. It was super creepy. Who even thinks it's okay to insist that I screw with my cousin? It sounds like something that would be printed in the local newspaper with no verification as a flavor piece that she took hook, line, and sinker. I suppose one of the bigger tribes may have to implement something like that in the past if there was a more ethnocentric element in the leadership, although I do doubt that this was ever really a thing anywhere. The closest I could think of was the propaganda in Nazi Germany. Even if there was such a law at one time, and she had evidence of it, I'm not even American, and I know there are several different extant tribes, all of whom would have their own traditions. How could she know you belong to the one she knew had this law? You're right, it sounds like a tabloid thing, and it does sound very, very Nazi-ish. And yeah, she had zero knowledge of my tribe, unlike me, who is a part of the tribe and grew up in it. We actually have the opposite of what she thought. Even before the colonizers got here, we had very organized systems in place to go to other tribes, and to make sure our spouses were not related to us. It's against our culture and tradition to commit incest, like she was insisting. And that's where I'm gonna leave it today, guys. Tell me what you thought about me reading comments. I think it does add to the video. like you guys were seeing in the AITA video. I won't lie. I don't know how you feel about people just reading the stories and not some of the comments. Maybe it's something I'll try out as well in these videos. It feels better to read comments. I know sometimes I read too many, but when I'm reading them, it just feels good because it adds so much more to the story. The OP replies and we get to a second side of the story. Anyway, that's just my headcanon. I hope you guys have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.